Good evening, everybody. This is the Monday, March 4th scheduled meeting for USD 453, Board of Education. Well, roll call now. Mrs. Reed?
Here.
Ms. Wilson?
Here.
Mrs. Overby?
Here.
Ms. Wells?
Here.
Ms. Price?
Here.
Who's down there? Oh, Mrs. Murphy?
Here.
I'm Mike Carney. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Time for the scheduled input. Or district statement.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. And just a quick reminder, Mr. Sifford has asked to make sure we speak clearly into the mic for purposes of elevating that voice both online and otherwise. So to the mission statement, the mission of the Leavenworth Public Schools is to prepare every student for success in every classroom every day.
Thank you. And the next subject is scheduled patron input, correct? Let me read the little introduction here for everybody. We're pleased to have you join us tonight to celebrate student and staff achievement, hear informational presentations and reports, and observe consideration of policy decisions and administrative recommendations specific to the Leavenworth Unified School District. We set aside time at each regular scheduled board meeting to hear from the public. Comments should address board policies or procedures our administrators established to carry out those policies, as opposed to individual complaints to investigate and resolve. Please understand that while board members will listen to and carefully consider your comments, board members will not immediately respond to questions either verbally or through gestures, nor will they engage in dialogue of answer and response during the patron input this evening. This is not appropriate time or place for patrons to make comments of a personal nature about any district employee or student by name. Persons making comments which violate the privacy rights of district employees or students will be asked to terminate the remarks. If speakers have concerns specific to an individual student or staff member, please make an appointment with the superintendent. Those concerns will be documented and shared with the board. Each patron is reminded they have 3 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a warning with 15 seconds to go, at which time you need to cease your presentation. So it looks like we only have one person on right now, and that's, can I just call you Mrs. Jackson? Yes. Come on up. Let's go to the podium.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lavinia Seahorn Jackson, and I am here to advocate for the children that are in my care. I received a call from the Board of Education. Is that good to say? Board of Education letting me know that one of my children had received an assessment without my consent. So I did some investigation, and it was in fact true. And also there was an effect truancy, which was not true because I transferred my student from Leavenworth Public Schools to another school, Lawrence Virtual School. But I was receiving calls on a daily basis, even after I have the screenshot here that I've submitted to Mr. Potter. And I asked him to give the appropriate individuals the screenshots and everything that I have, the evidence that I have collected. So last Monday, I received a summons to go to court because of the truancy, which did not happen. And also an allegation, which I think that would be like a personal statement, so I'll just hold that. But I'm here today to just ask the people on the board if they could just intervene in this situation, because there was no truancy. Whatever allegations that the school board made, not school board, excuse me, the individual at the school is not true. So I have court tomorrow. And I also, there was a detective, I guess I should have called her name. She came out to the house at the school's prompting. And that was 24214. And it ended up being an HBO. In other words, she handled it. She came out. I said, look around, whatever you need to do, because I have nothing to hide. But my thing is, I have other children in my care that I have legal guardianship over. And I just do not want this to spiral out of control because a person or whomever at the school board or at the school did not, I guess, follow up on the attendance and has him, my son, I think it's like almost 20 days. So that's all I have to say. I just like some justice here because going to court is a big deal to me. And if the people at the school or here at the board, which I called to ask them to undo this thing, if they would have done that, there would be no court tomorrow. So that's all I have
Thank
to
you for your
say.
comments. Item 2, consideration of the 2022-2023 financial audit report.
We need to adopt the agenda.
Adopt the agenda
Pardon me?
first. We need to adopt the agenda first, please.
Let's do that.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. All in favor? 7-0. Okay, now we'll move to 2. Not bad. Been a long day. So consideration of the 22-23 financial audit report. And there she is.
Good evening. I'm Karen Lynn with BT & Co. And I appreciate a few moments of your meeting to present the results of the audit. I believe you have 2 documents that are from the audit process. One is a report to the board and the other is the financial statements themselves. But I'm going to just go through the report to the board, which highlights the required communications from the audit and the conclusions. And if you have any questions after I'm done, I'd be happy to answer those. Our responsibility after we perform the audit is to perform the audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. Those standards require that we plan and perform the audit with the objective of forming an opinion about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement. So we designed our audit with that objective in mind, and we were able to issue the opinion that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. We also performed the audit in accordance with the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide, which the state of Kansas issues and asks as a part of our process to do some statutory and some activity fund test work. So we did that as a part of our process. And also because you received about $7.5 and spent about $7.5 million in federal dollars, we also performed the audit in accordance with the Single Audit Act and uniform administrative requirements, cost principles, and audit requirements for federal awards and the U.S. Office of Management and Budget's compliance supplement. And so we have some opinions related to that I'll go through as a part of my audit. Your financial statements are prepared in accordance with the regulatory basis, which is a basis that the state of Kansas allows municipalities within the state to use instead of generally accepted accounting principles. And it basically is the cash basis. We used to call it the cash and budget basis of the state of Kansas, and now they've changed it to the regulatory basis. So the opinion that we issued, the unmodified opinion, is on that regulatory basis. And we do, in the opinion that we attach to your financial statements, we do issue that unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis, but we do state in there that it is an adverse opinion in relation to generally accepted accounting principles because it is not done in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. I do want to highlight a couple of things that we do as a part of the audit process that I think are important for you as a board to know. These are in the opinion that's attached to the financial statements, but I think it's important for me to just briefly read through these. We exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We identify and assess the risks of misstatement whether due to fraud or error, and then we design our audit procedures in response to those risks. We also obtain an understanding of internal controls relevant to the audit in order to design our audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances. We evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies and the reasonableness of significant accounting estimates, and evaluate the overall presentation of the financial statements. And we conclude whether there are any conditions or events that prevent the district from continuing for a reasonable period of time, which we generally consider to be 1 year. So if there were any issues in any of those areas, internal control, accounting policies, estimates, anything like that, we would bring those to your attention here in these conclusions to let you know if there was anything that we needed to inform you about. And there was nothing in any of those areas that was unusual or not consistently applied or inappropriate that we need to let you know about. So other things that are important, conclusions from the audit process, there were no audit adjustments that we needed to make to the financials that were provided to us, which is a good indication to you that your financial reporting structure is working as it should. And nothing that we needed to do as a part of our audit to make adjustments to those numbers. We would also bring to your attention if there were any issues or problems during the audit process, things as far as like dealing with management or information that we requested that wasn't provided. Any issues like that could be red flags of more serious issues, and we would want sure that you as a board were aware of those and probably wouldn't wait till tonight if we had those kinds of issues. We would have let you know those much earlier in the process. So as you can be assured, we had nothing like that, that we had no issues, and quite the opposite. Ms. Maddox and her team were very cooperative, very efficient in providing information to us as we asked for it, and we were able to get through the audit process very efficiently and effectively. We did have one internal control item that we needed to report as a part of our federal test work with the Single Audit Act. Those items that I mentioned earlier, the single audit and OMB's compliance supplement, require us to do internal control and compliance testing over major programs that we select to test as a part of that federal test work. We did identify just one item related to procurement, and it is reported on page 46 of the financial statement. There is a action plan, corrective action plan already in place, and it has been implemented already. It's not an issue where we understand that the process was occurring. It just wasn't being documented that it happened. Just like a screenshot needed to be taken of the federal site where you go to do an activity, and that screenshot wasn't taken. So it's not really a large issue, but it is something that's part of the compliance test work that needs to be reported. And that has been already implemented. The last item is just the letter that is in this packet. That is on the district's letterhead addressed to our firm. It's required by our audit standards to have certain things that we've discussed during the audit process that are underlying the financial statements to be put in writing in the form of a letter. And when this letter is signed, it was the indication to us that the financials were ready to be finalized. A lot of good information in this letter that helps support the financials and is helpful for you as board members as you read through the financials to have this information to be able to understand the financials and to have that much more information. So we do encourage you to read through this just to give you additional information to help with your fiduciary responsibility. So with that, I would answer any questions that you might have about the conclusions or about the audit report if you've had a chance to take a look at it.
So the general accepted accounting practices, is that something that all school districts are not doing? They're doing it the way we do it, all the school
I would
districts?
say 90% of the school districts use the regulatory basis. There are some school districts in Kansas that do use generally accepted accounting principles, and it's generally the very, very large Blue Valley, Shawnee Mission, Wichita. Those very large ones do the generally
Okay.
accepted accounting principles-based financial statements.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Beth, and your staff.
Yes, thank you.
Pardon
I'd like
me?
to make a motion to accept the report as presented to us.
Second.
Who seconded? Judy? Got a motion by Mrs. Murphy, a second by Mrs. Price to accept the audit report. All in favor? Hopefully everybody's in favor of that. Good news. Okay. The glasses are working now. Looks like recognition time. You wanna do that person?
Hey, tonight we get a very special opportunity to recognize one of our very own. It is the Junior Citizen of the Year. We've got a special walk-up video for her as she makes her way to the podium.
My name is Gabrielle Carnoli. I'm a senior. So I was awarded the Junior Citizen of the Year award by the Leavenworth Lansing Chamber of Commerce. And they check your academics, your community involvement, and your community service hours. So our counselors nominated so many of our seniors, and out of the, I believe it was 8 of us that applied for it, they selected me based on my community service. So a lot of hours through JRTC, just doing different veteran events. I volunteered at the animal shelter for a few years, and then the Women's Alliance Against Sexual Assault was a big program that I've been a part of. Through my martial arts studio, we teach self-defense classes. We have a lot of opportunities here. JRTC and NHS were my biggest ones, but they allowed me to get out into the community and experience different elements, especially since we're in a military community that other schools may not have had. I enlisted 2 days ago, so I will be a pharmacy specialist in the Army. It's a great honor. I was definitely surprised. This is one of the first years that I had heard about it, and very thankful to receive this scholarship to help further my education.
Okay, I hope I say this right, but this is your Junior Citizen of the Year, ladies and gentlemen, Gabrielle Carnoli.
The Leavenworth High School District hereby presents Gabrielle Carnoli, Leavenworth High School for exemplary community involvement, student leadership, and representing Leavenworth High School as the Leavenworth Lansing Area Chamber of Commerce Junior Citizen of the Award. Thank you. You're good.
You ready to continue? Okay, we'll go to item 4, consent agenda. 4.1 is the check register, 4.2 is the gift log, 4.3 is the minutes. 4.4, consideration of the 24-25 E-rate application, and 4.5, the JROTC field trip.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Go ahead.
Got a motion by Mrs. Murphy, second by Mrs. Overby to approve the consent agenda. All in favor? 7-0. And now building report. I guess there's no items removed, correct?
Nope.
So number 6, the building report, and we'll be having, that's a pretty neat name to try to pronounce.
Miss Sin.
Oh. Principal Zen. Is that how you say Zen?
Sin,
Zen?
sin, yeah, like S-I-N, but.
Oh, okay. Well, we won't go there. We won't go there.
I'm Christy Sen, the principal. This is Kate Cervantes. Thank you for allowing us to share the great successes of our school. Oh, we have it spelled. Okay. Didn't know that. We can do that.
Okay, so we have 4 sections of first grade and second grade. We reduced down to 3 sections of third grade and fourth grade this year. This is a new thing based on numbers of enrollment, and then those positions were used elsewhere. So we have art, STEM, PE, and music as our specials. And then we have lots of great support staff. We're really lucky to be almost fully staffed at Anthony. That is definitely a blessing this year. I'd really like to highlight our custodial staff. I feel like we have the best lead or head custodian in the district. Very, very, very thankful for her. She does a lot of really hard work. And another Miss Terry, our kitchen manager, she is amazing as well, and she's worked short-staffed all year. That is one area that we are short-staffed in. So really wanted to highlight those 2 in particular. But all of our support staff and teachers at Anthony are very dedicated, and we're very lucky for that.
Here's a little bit about our demographics. We have grades 1 through 4, approximately 300 students, and about 78% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch. At Anthony this year, we've really narrowed our focus into 4 different areas, and those areas include data-driven decision-making, chronic absenteeism, collaboration with our stakeholders, and then also behavior continuum, and we'll explore all 4 of those areas. A little bit about data-driven decision-making. That has been something that has really driven a lot of our coursework and conversations this year. And a big focus with that is that it gives us some grit and something to sink our teeth into as we are having conversations, and then also looking at interventions, whether that be with academics or students. And then it also gives us an opportunity to look back and review and see if we've made some progress. Especially in first and second grade, we're looking at 10-minute meetings for our quick phonics screener. And then third and fourth grade, we've been looking at our interim data for the Kansas State assessment and looking at teaching based on those specific targets. And so that's coming up after spring break.
Chronic absenteeism has been a focus at Anthony for a couple of years now. If you look at the blue graph, that shows data from the 21-22 school year. We were at over 60% of our students were considered chronically absent. We looked at that as a major concern. So we started targeting specific grade levels, targeting just school-wide, and then we have reduced our data down to only about 35% of our students this year are considered chronically absent, and we are very proud of that huge decline. And those other graphs just give, that's what we look at during our chronic absenteeism task force meetings. So we're focused on first grade. We have a little bit higher absenteeism in that particular grade level. And in those meetings, we look at specific student data. We look at grade level data to figure out how to target those, the kiddos that we need to get on our radar or get them at school. The next slide talks about some of the interventions that we put in place for chronic absenteeism. Every day at our morning assembly, we look at, did we have a red day or did we have a green day? Meaning, do we have over 90% attendance? And if we do, then it's considered a green day, and then we celebrate that. And then if we get 12 of those days, we have a very, like a school-wide assembly, and we might have a teacher get silly stringed or a pie in the face, as Mrs. Adams received our first one, and that was a very popular one. We also really focus on highlighting chronic absenteeism improvements in our social media. That's been a very big thing. We've had a lot of great feedback from parents about that. And then every newsletter that I put out, a weekly newsletter, we always have an attendance focus in there. And we have started the family attendance awards every month, and that's been really popular too. So just making attendance a very big emphasis.
Overall, we're very lucky to have a supportive community, not only with our local organizations, but also different parents and families that come in to support our school. So we put an emphasis also on family engagement. We had our first event around the fall time in September, and we focused on what does a Title I school look like and what that means. So that was around back to school night, and we had a really great turnout. And then we also have one coming up in second semester in late March. And we're focusing on literacy strategies and what that looks like for different grade levels. And then we're really lucky to have a great PTO. They provide a lot of different engaging activities for our families
like movie nights and bingo, and they're awesome about appreciating our teachers during staff appreciation and teacher appreciation, but also during our conferences as well. And then our site meetings are monthly as well, and we look at different data. And we're very lucky to have a partnership with First United Methodist Church. They help out not only our students, but also our staff as well, and that is throughout the year. So you can see a couple examples of the different flyers we have, some kiddos from our family engagement night in the fall. And then we also push that out in our newsletter as well, not only to say thank you for our support, but also to hopefully get others involved in our site council and our PTO.
Our last area of focus is behavior. I know that's a focus for everyone in the district, but wanted to highlight that our classrooms do a great job of those tier 1 interventions within their classroom community. We really emphasize that at Anthony to try to develop that community focus in the classroom. That's a big emphasis. But beyond that, we also have a school-wide PBIS system where we have reward parties every quarter, and kids can earn different things that way. We have a mental health or behavior team that we meet on Friday mornings to look at targeted behavior data and see how we can best support teachers in that way. We have a behavior management task force going on to select, just that's district-wide, select something that we would go to next year. That's a big thing. And then at Anthony specifically and at Warren Middle School, we're piloting a school-within-a-school program. And that's something that we have a teacher that is targeting social skill interventions with, they do all their academics on Bright Thinkers, so they are able to be in a classroom that is kind of a secluded area that they don't have to do a lot of transitions. A lot of kids struggle with transitions, and then they have that extra time to work on social skills, to work on the missing skills that they need to be successful with their regular classroom. Then once we target some, I think we have an example of that. We have an example of how we target daily points for each student. And there's an example of what our classroom looks like as well. And then once goals are met, they can transition back to their classrooms to be hopefully more successful in those settings when they gain those additional skills. And it's been going really well at Anthony and Richard Ward as well. So that's Anthony in a nutshell. Thank you. Appreciate your letting us present.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions?
I just had a comment. Like I know Facebook does what Facebook does, but your guys' school comes up to me at least once a day with new things that you guys are doing, and I'm definitely seeing the push that you guys are doing with the absenteeism. Is there any one thing in particular that you found that is working really well?
I think the piece that we do in the morning assembly, where we look at our data as a whole school, I think that's been our biggest success. We have kids talk about it throughout the day, and they look forward to. And if it's not a green day above 90%, kids will sigh and be upset about it. And we just encourage, hey, you're all here today. Thank you. Encourage your friends to come tomorrow, and we move forward. But I think that's been our biggest thing. The pieces that we do all together, they really like that. And students feel success in that.
And then can you tell us a little bit more about what you are doing family-wise? You had mentioned that you have like a family reward.
Yeah, so every month in my newsletter, I put some kind of a reward, like this last month it was a box of chocolate because it was February. We've had gift cards that we've done before, and anybody that has above 90% attendance on a certain amount of days, they get put into the drawing, and we draw 4 or 5 every month.
Okay.
Then it's a great thing for me to make that personal phone call to families and first of all thank them for making school a priority and then making attendance a priority. And then I get to tell them, your son or daughter won the Family Attendance Award for October or whatever. It's a great conversation that I get to have with families, and then we celebrate those students and then put that in the newsletter. And that's really picked up momentum.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. You mentioned Miss Terry. She's
Yes.
in culinary,
She's our kitchen manager.
and they're shorthanded. So how is that, considering we hired a company to make sure that you all are not short-staffed?
Well,
How is all that working with the food? And trust me, I have lots of concerns district-wide. When I have my
Right.
granddaughter telling me, oh, we got sack breakfast or sack lunch again. That's not what we're supposed to be paying for. So because you mentioned Miss Terry being short-staffed, I'm really interested to see what's going on.
Luckily, they recently had hired someone, it was actually a former Anthony student that's working there. So they're working up with 3 people. So they've got a good system where they share responsibilities. A lot of times, teachers will go in and help with breakfast service to make sure that that goes smoothly. So we all kind of pull together as a team and work together. I think they do have one other opening that could be filled. And Chartwell's works hard to try to get people to apply for those positions.
Right, and I'm not blaming
Oh, for
the
sure.
district for the lapse in
Mhm.
employment. I'm not blaming your school or any other school for the lapse of employment. That was on Chartwell's shoulders when they did the dog and pony show of how they were gonna reinvent and create it. So I am really disappointed and startled to hear that there is a staff shortage. I am thankful, to know people are pulling together and
Right.
everything, but we're paying for that. So I want them to do better, so our kids have better.
Right.
So I do appreciate you giving us
Sure.
that feedback
And
there.
we've had a lot of great feedback from students in particular about the quality of the food that week. So
They're
that's
loving
definitely
the
a bonus.
food.
They are.
Okay,
Yeah.
the food's great.
Yeah.
It's just we need people there working it. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
For sure.
Was that your original idea, the family rewards?
The family.
We were talking about the drawing and the chocolate or whatever you do.
Yes, we did that. We came up with that in our chronic absenteeism task force. We were just like, what are some ideas we can do to better get families on board too? So that
Have
was
we been
one.
able to implement that in any other buildings? Do you know?
I don't know, but I'll share that at our next elementary principal.
Thank you
meeting.
so
Yeah,
much. I
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, and item 7, resolution for increase to local option budget 24-25.
Okay, so as we've been talking about, due to increased cost, declining enrollment, and reduced federal dollars, we are projecting a decline of $700,000 in the general fund dollars for the 24-25 school year. One way to offset a portion of this decline in the general fund is a slight increase to our supplemental general fund local option budget. This increase requires the board to adopt a resolution and a notice to be published in the Leavenworth Times. An adoption of the resolution does not commit the board to the increase, and it does not change the 23-24 budget. 33% is the maximum local option budget percentage. The 23-24 school year that is set at 31.6%. So authority to increase by 1.4% for 24-25 equals a projection of $421,000 to offset the $700,000 decline. We are projecting this would not increase the overall mill rate because the bond and interest mill rate would be adjusted and an adjustment can be made to maintain the mill rate at a neutral mill levy. The board would then set the local option budget percentage when the 24-25 budget is approved next fall. So that's the summary and why there's a resolution there for you all to approve.
So why are you asking for us to do this now?
Because we have to notify KSDE what our anticipated local option budget percentage is going to be so they can work that into the budget at the state level. And if we don't report that we would like to have the 33%, then we would not be able to go to the 33%.
So the values on homes, as far as I understand it, continue to go up,
Yes?
and that raises people's taxes that way. And we don't have control over the county assessor's office and how those things go.
Correct.
But we do have control over how the board runs this district and the district finances. And so, as far as I understand this would mean that we would not be able to go revenue neutral truly, being able to drop the mill levy by the same amount that the values are going up with the assessments on homes and land and other things. And what is our enrollment, this year compared to the last few years?
Well, as we reported in October, we had over 100 student decline in enrollment.
So I was just trying to compare, if we're in a district that has continuously declining enrollment, why are we once again essentially asking for more money?
Because we also have increased costs.
Yeah.
That are greater than the decline in enrollment.
So have we been able to largely decrease our budget in the way that our enrollment is declining? Or does our budget just basically get bigger every year, even though our enrollment is going down every year?
Well, some things are going up because
Yeah.
again, there are costs that we do not control.
Yeah.
And also are not a function of enrollment. So where we can control those items, we do.
I think that's about all for me.
I'll hit on the slide deck that I think Mrs. Sen had up earlier. I believe Anthony Elementary has traditionally had 4 sections at both 3rd and 4th grade. We're now at 3 sections there. And so that would represent a right sizing that's beginning to occur across the district. I shared this with Mrs. Overby last week, I believe. As the district continues to get smaller, we have to right size our staff, right? And so that would be where the primary reduction would occur, Mrs. Reed. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
This is not actually changing the budget. It's just setting the not to exceed percentage, correct?
Correct. Vote tonight is not binding for anything, but a failure to allow this resolution through would not allow you to exceed the statewide average in August.
I just don't know why we'd want to exceed the statewide average. We're not the state's biggest school, so we would fall below what would be the average if we were one of the larger schools. So we're not up here. We're like here. So we're probably an average size district. Why would we want to exceed average?
I guess I'm not sure I'm following the question. So the statewide average,
This is
Average
still
or
raising
max?
taxes.
yeah, the statewide average of the LOB has nothing to do with a district size of enrollment. I don't know if that helps.
But why would we want to exceed the state average for that? Regardless of the enrollment, why would we want to exceed it?
Sure, to maximize the ability for us to be able to put money back into the hands of our folks.
By folks, you mean?
The people, the good people working for us, serving our children.
And then just a little bit to Ms. Murphy's point, you know, academically, the district doesn't have a good standing within the state either, as far as the state schools.
So for context, you're 700,000. That's about 10 teacher positions that we would need to cut. So you would need to remove
Why
10
would
teacher
we
positions.
just jump to touching the
I'm
teachers?
just giving you context for something.
Haven't we recently created positions that aren't classroom teachers, that are supportive staff positions in the last year?
Sure. So it could also be some of those positions as well. So 10 positions would represent that 700,000. This reduces that by over half.
And the rates obviously vary within, you know, district staff salary,
Absolutely.
stuff like that.
Yep. As you know from having attended my presentations, I use teacher salary for that baseline all the time. Classify would be more positions, as you know, right? Because they obviously have less in total salary.
So Beth, knowing that the enrollment is declining, is your department looking to the future as to what our budget should look like for the future?
Yes, we've been working on that all year and continue to work on it.
Right, because this isn't a new thing that we've known that our population is declining of our students.
No.
Right. And then knowing that our students are not performing to state average, I think we need to make sure that we put focus on our support staff and our staff to make sure that they are there in place to provide the education to our students that they need. So instead of decreasing the budget, it really needs to increase to make sure that our students have additional resources that they need so that they can get to the level that they need to be successful in their futures.
Do you have data to prove that more dollars equal higher academics?
How would they not?
I can send you a lot of information very easily about money is not the answer to the academic downfall. I will send you some things tonight.
That'd be great. I would like to make a motion to
Well,
pass.
hang on a
I'm
second.
not-
I want to say
We're not
something.
done.
Sorry.
Well, I'd like to say something first. So I'm going to go back in time again. I keep saying this, but it falls on deaf ears most of the time. But the local option budget is a farce, number one. And Danny Zeck and I were on the board about the same time when it first started. Correct, Mr. Zeck? The LOB? I voted against it because the legislature was not funding education at the level they're supposed to be funded. So they came up with this great plan to stick the taxpayers in each school district for more money of the local option budget. Well, it's so inequitable, it's crazy. You take what we get, what do we get normally, dollar-wise? Historically, $1 million maybe
For which?
on the local option budget part.
Property taxes is about 3.9 million.
Okay, but I mean, what's the dollar amount?
For 23-24, it's 9.5 million.
Well, Olathe School District and Blue Valley, they probably get 90 million.
Yeah.
And that's why it's inequitable. And they need to, we had a lawsuit over this whole thing. It sort of got resolved, but it's still not where we're supposed to be in funding. We shouldn't have to tack on extra money to the taxpayer because the legislature can't do their jobs. That's what it boils down to. If you want to know the history of the LOB. Go ahead and ask your questions now.
Well, it just seems like to me when we sat here and we raised the taxes on the taxpayers and said, you know, we're going to be good to go. We knew that there was inflation and everything. And now we're right here, sitting here saying, we're not good to go. We want more money. And I just think that does the taxpayers a disservice because it was like, hey, we're going to raise the taxes. It's going to take care of the inflation. It's going to take care of the kids. It's going to take care of the educators. And now we're right here just a few short months later going, we don't have enough money. But we're already shorthanded as staff, but we still don't have enough money. So we're already not paying a lot of these positions because we're short of staff, but we don't have the money. That's why it doesn't make sense. You can't say you're short X number of people, but we got to have money when you're not even paying all those people. And I know the perfect world is every seat would be filled, but it's not. So it's kind of like, how is it that we don't have the money that we've got to grab more? That's why I'm not comfortable with it. It's like everybody's really quick to get into everybody's pocket, but we don't have the numbers to prove that anything's being made better because of it, especially when we get the state scores coming in. And it's like, what is happening here? Or what's coming up on the agenda later? Let's have the kids in the classroom 20% less every week, but we want more of your money.
Mm-hmm.
It's hypocrisy. It's complete hypocrisy. Give me more money, we're going to do more, but by the way, they're going to be there less.
I was even told that the 4-day is going to potentially cost the district more money. And a lot of people assume it's going to be less.
Well, we're going to talk about that later.
But it still goes hand in hand. You're here asking for more money and projecting here later to discuss something that actually is probably going to cost us more money while the kids are basically in attendance less. And I know you've got it down to the minutes of where they're in versus where they're out. But the thing is, it's still 20% less a week. And I can go back here when we get to it and talk about what it was like with COVID, with online learning. This is not a small district, all due respect, compared to what yours was. This is considerably a larger district. And we lost a lot of kids because of that. And a lot of those scores and lost learning with it. And this is going to be another battle here because of that. So that's why I'm not comfortable with sitting here going, yeah, let's just grab some more dough.
I do want to clarify that tonight is not doing anything to this year's budget. Also, the proposal includes a mill rate flat proposal. So we are not proposing to raise the overall mill rate. I want to make sure that's not been lost in translation.
But if we don't adjust it for appraisals, the taxes are still going to go up on the school side.
But again, we're not doing any of that tonight. All tonight is about is a resolution that is needed for next fiscal year.
In order to essentially raise taxes.
It would only give you the ability. You would still have the ability to set that at the August meeting.
So this is not an automatic change to raise taxes, it's just basically giving us the maneuver space to go to the Kansas max of 33.
That is accurate.
So that's all it's asking, is basically telling KSDE, we want the ability, if we need it, or if we decide we need it, to go to 33.
I understand.
So we're not taking anybody's money, we're not doing anything else, we're just basically telling KSDE, we want permission to go to the max if we require it.
I understand.
That is accurate.
So
So I got a question. In August, we have to come back and vote on that then?
Yes.
right,
Correct.
because we'll go through the whole
Okay.
budget.
Yes or no,
Okay.
yes or no.
Yes, yes, yes.
So this is just for maneuver space.
This is setting the stage.
Setting the stage, setting the ceiling, yes.
Anything else? Need a motion.
Do you need it read or just approval
Do we
of?
need to read the resolution?
I'd like to make a motion
Okay.
to approve the resolution 23/24-020.
I'll second.
Okay, I'm sorry. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the above-named school district shall be authorized to adopt a local option budget in each school year in an amount not to exceed 33% of the amount of local foundation aid. The local option budget authorized by this resolution may be adopted unless a petition in opposition to the same signed by not less than 10% of the qualified electors of the school district is filed with the county election officer of the home county of the school district within 40 days after publication of this resolution. If a petition is filed, the county election officer shall submit the question of whether adoption of the local option budget shall be authorized to the electors in the school district of an election called for the purpose or at the next general election as is specified by the Board of Education of the school district. Continue. This is to certify that the above resolution was duly adopted. If it is by the Board of Education of Unified School District number 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas, on this 4th day of March 2024.
So
And we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. All in favor? Was it 5-2? 5-2. Motion passes. Next item. Parents as teachers learning space expansion. Who's got that?
Mr.
Oh,
Dedeke.
Good evening. I'm here tonight for your consideration to do an expansion project at the Lawson Early Education Center Gymnasium. Nettie Hartnett has been the home for PAT for the past several years. It's always been a plan to move PAT over to Lawson to kind of gain that integration from early childhood into the school system. As we looked at this, some of the spaces that we had allocated upstairs might be outgrown pretty quickly. So we started looking downstairs into a space that currently is being used for a offset program in that building, but next year will not take place in that space. So tonight I give you I think a pretty good summary on our plan for this area. So we're looking at finishing off a storage room into an office space for 4 of the PAT workers, another storage room for the PAT director, and then creating 2 separated areas that are able to be isolated from general access to keep these play spaces clean, as PAT likes to really keep control of those spaces. One of the bigger pieces is we would remove the bleachers that are currently in the gymnasium, and this gymnasium hasn't been used for any athletic events for several years. Those would be removed, and then we would build back in storage cabinets essentially on either side of that gymnasium. I believe in your packet you also received the bid responses, and it had somewhat of a small drawing to kind of illustrate what we had designed to have completed. So this evening, we put this out to 3 contractors. Nabholz was one of those that worked with us originally. They did not come in as a low bid. Universal Construction is another company out of the Kansas City area. that has done some small projects for us in the district and has a good reputation. So they did get the low bid at $42,928. In full transparency, this project's going to cost a little bit more than that when we're all said and done. Other components, HVAC, some electrical, and those things that would go in hand with this. Some of it might be completed by our staff that are certified to do that work. Others will be completed with contractors, and they'd be a smaller dollar amount where they would not be required to come back to the board for their attention. So that estimated totals probably around $95,000. I think that's a little high, but I'd rather go high than shoot too low and provide that number. So again, this evening, $42,928 for the construction of the walls, sheetrock, insulation, and those things. One big caveat. In the process of evaluating this and making sure we're complying with state codes, this is going to the state fire marshal for review. It is currently there. I do plan to follow up with that tomorrow. That's going to delay my schedule just a little bit, but I've talked with the contractor, and I'm certain that we will still get this done within the time frame that we are looking for.
Is this going to disrupt any of the classroom work that's happening at Lawson already?
Well,
In the other areas of Lawson, is this going to disrupt any of that, the construction?
No. The nice thing with it being down in this area is it's isolated from the classrooms and the learning spaces. So no, I would make sure that we did not disrupt. To a fact that when we do dismissal through that space, we already have talked with the contractor to make sure that that area is clear and accessible for those students to exit to the buses.
Will we still continue to do dismissal through there once this is PAT's area?
Yes, I believe that is the plan. The timing of the PAT program and the dismissal process kind of overlap. So you have a morning session with PAT, you have a noon dismissal, you have an afternoon, and then you have a late afternoon dismissal. So from what it looks like right now, we should not be running into each other's programs.
Is there did they give you like a number of hours it might take to do this project?
No.
Just window time?
Oh, to complete it?
Yeah.
3 weeks, something like that, 3 to 4 weeks. Again, that is so they're going to have to build walls and put sheetrock on. The wiring internally is going to be done in-house, or parts of it may be contracted out. So it will come down to me coordinating all those pieces, but I would say within a month and a half, we would be complete.
So I have a question. We worked with Nabholz, for 6 years since
Yes.
I came on the board with all the other bond issue and reconstruction and everything. So I know they do great work,
Yes.
and I know sometimes they actually came in under
Mhm.
what they've actually bid, and there were like rebates or things because the way they bulk buy. Does Universal Construction also have that opportunity to where that is a possibility? Or are they a little bit more limited because they're smaller, even with a great reputation? They're still smaller and may not have the accessibility to some of the extra perks at Nabholz.
So I think what we saw from Nabholz was we were seeing benefits based off of the larger scale purchases of the projects that we were doing. So when we're talking tens of millions of dollars worth of projects, we were buying at a larger scope, and those schedules could overlap and we would benefit from it. This one being a tighter scope, smaller project, it's still a fair amount of money. I don't think we will see any kind of big benefit for savings. So I would say no, not on this project.
Are they going to be able to maintain the same integrity of that area to still coincide with the atmosphere that Lawson has with all the architectural design? Or is it just going to be something generic thrown into the middle of what's been made pretty grand?
So the two spaces in the gym would be the most visible. The offices would still have the same door, so it would look the same as it does now.
Okay.
I did speak with our architect, who we did consult with on this. They had some ideas of doing something on the wall to make it kind of blend in with a tree or something like that. At this point, I was not going to bring additional costs with decorations at this point. Maybe that's something we could look at after it's completed and put some type of scenery on the wall or even paint it on there
Okay.
to help it blend.
And this is coming out of capital outlay, correct?
Correct.
And how are we on capital outlay, seeing since there appears to be budget deficits in the future due to inflation and things?
I don't know if you're wanting a general health, that would be a Miss Maddox,
Yeah,
or a this year health for my personal.
yeah, well, there still seems to be a big list of things that still
Sure.
need to get done and need done, want done, the needs versus the wants. And I'm pretty clear on those. I'm just trying to make sure we're not, I know we want to transition and everything, but then when everybody's like money's tight or whatever, well, do we need to really hold on, or are there other ways, or?
To answer your first question, I understand what you're asking. Luckily, we have been fortunate to have a robust capital outlay to stay on top of projects like roofing and mechanical. So by doing that repetitively, we have a little wiggle room to take care of projects like this that kind of come up where we need to support it to be the benefit for the district. As far as my budget goes that I've been given to work with this year, I think I'm doing pretty well on target for the things that we've talked about accomplishing. We've already awarded an elevator bid. We've taken care of a roof. We've replaced a boiler. Those I would consider are pretty large projects that we would try to tackle each year. And then I start moving into smaller pieces where this would fit into. Moving forward, I would say those needs are being reviewed. Dr. Adams and I have talked through kind of that forecast of what it looks like, and Mrs. Maddox to try and really start projecting that next 5 years. So I have that 5-year plan. We're trying to go through it again, make sure it's accurate, and then eventually bring that back to the board for review.
Now that boiler that was replaced, that was the one over at Third Avenue School,
That was at Anthony.
Anthony.
Yes.
What about the heating problem that happened at Third Avenue School where they were
So-
without heat one day?
So at Nettie Hardman, that one day, I got to think back. So that is a pneumatic system. That heating system is run by an air compressor. We had to change out a motor, and during the time that motor was changed out, the PSI setting on the compressor was turned down. That system is default heat. So because it did not have enough air pressure to open and close the valves within the building, it ran hot. And then conversely, I think it got shut off because of that. And we had a cold day while we were working on, because we had to have people in tunnels working on those things.
Right, I
it is
remember touring
fixed
it.
now.
So, okay, so because things happen.
They do.
And we've got some older things and things happen.
Yes.
Do you project that this is going to last a little bit longer, or are you looking maybe in a year or two that's actually going to need to be replaced?
What is that? These rooms?
Boiler and.
The boiler at Nettie?
Yeah.
The boiler at Nettie was replaced about 7 years ago. So the boiler itself is fine.
Okay.
That building has other concerns that we've brought to the board
Right.
and have talked through. So again, that is going back to kind of a master plan Dr. Adams and I have started to work towards to really target those things that would be on his list and bring back to the board.
Okay. Thank you. So, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if has the people that are in the parents as teachers, like Kisha Wagner and her parent coordinators, are they a part of the plan? Have they seen this? Does this work for their program's needs?
So I would defer back to Ms. Sloan, but I can say Ms. Wagner walked that building with us when we first looked at this.
Yeah, so this has been a part of the plan. For those of you that recall, when we did our construction in 2018, and then when we did our renovations, it was always the goal to get us all under one roof as far as the early education. We kind of slow played it a little bit just to make sure we had capacity and room and space, but we've always wanted. In fact, there are officing out of there a couple days a week right now.
Right.
So it's just a natural transition to go ahead and get them over there. But to your question, yes, she was very well aware, as all the staff members, the remaining staff members that are there.
Right. And so it's my personal opinion, just me as a parent and having gone through the Parents as Teachers program, that is such a great program that introduces families to our district. I want to make sure that this isn't just a Band-Aid on the situation, that they have what they need in order for their program to be successful, to continue to gain families into our district and make them love education and
Absolutely,
help. Because
absolutely.
that's the one time that we have parents with their kids in these circumstances in our buildings, that we can have them on a weekly basis. And I think it's important that we as the district present ourselves and our facilities in a fantastic way.
And if you're not familiar, Mrs. Wagner utilizes the Early Education Center, even though she's not there all the time right now, because our families are constantly using the outdoor play area for when we have our Saturday, our group connections and things like that. So it is a focus location for parents as teachers, and we utilize it as far as play groups. We're just moving the whole operation over there effective next year.
For transparency's sake, would it have been detrimental to the Parents as Teachers program to leave it located at Nettie?
No, not necessarily. No, we figure we'll utilize resources, and we have them split between two buildings. Those spaces could then be occupied if we expand our alternative program over at Nettie potentially. So that space could be utilized in another manner. Could we operate as we are currently? Absolutely. But we feel like it's going towards the strategic goal and the direction of the board at that time. If you're telling us that that's not your wishes, we can remain where we're at. But that was the direction of the board when we did all the renovations at the Early Education Center, was to have everybody under one roof.
I would just echo Ms. Wells' comments. I've utilized the Parents as Teachers program with both of my kiddos. It's been exceptional both times. Very extremely important is what I would say.
It's a blue ribbon, and we're heading for another blue ribbon. You'll get more information about that next month. So.
But for the district that's obviously looking to try and raise tax again, I think that, again, we have to start looking at where we're spending money unnecessarily. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the bid for the renovations at Earl Lawson for the Parents and Teachers office spaces with the Universal Construction bid at $42,328.
$928.
Oh, $928.
We've got a motion by Mr. Murphy, second by Mrs. Price to let the funds go for the Universal Construction Company to do their work at the Early Education Center. All in favor? 6-1.
Thank you.
Next, the number 9, consideration of 4-day school week.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. As you have heard probably ad nauseum at this point, we are certainly in a recruitment and retention squeeze. I believe we have now eclipsed over 60 positions that are currently vacant this year. So I believe it was January board meeting, if I'm not mistaken, we previewed what I referenced at the time as the kitchen sink, which was just about anything and everything that we heard from our staff listening sessions and otherwise to attempt to combat this extreme challenge. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Sloan, who helped chair and or lead the 4-day school week exploration, and then 2 of our esteemed committee members who will be presenting later. So with that, Mrs. Sloan, take it away.
Yes, before we begin, I just want to share with you, you should have a little legal pad there that you can take notes, along with 2 full-size copies of the calendar. Thought it might be beneficial. And then I would just ask that you hold your questions to the end so that we can get through the presentation. I will tell you, Mrs. Maddox and I were the chair of the committee, but we did the grunt work behind the scenes. It was the committee work that created this calendar and this proposal. And so while I didn't have any volunteers, I volunteered 2 of the committee members to join me so you could hear from them. They're in the classroom and or former classroom teachers, as well as working in our teaching and learning department. So I thought it was important that you hear from the committee members. Also, I recognize we have a couple committee members with us. Laura Myers is here from Lawson, and then we have Scott Kessler as our administrator. So thank you both for being here.
But we're going to go ahead, go ahead and get started. I know you guys are all excited to learn about the 4-day school week and what we have found, more importantly, our community. And so this aligns directly with our strategic plan. And in the pillar of staffing and personnel, we felt like as we move forward, everything we do is to align to the strategic plan. So I want to bring your attention to the objective for me specifically under staffing and personnel. Our focus is to recruit and retain staff. And we're going to talk about our number of openings more throughout the presentation, but it's important. We need to put ourselves in a situation that we can attract and retain our staff. Everything that we do is to attract and retain our staff. And so one of the things that we're considering is this 4-day school week. I also want to bring your attention to our school community. When I talk about school community, I define that as our staff, our students, our parents, and you, our Board of Education. So when we talk about our school community, that's who we're referencing. That is a term that's used in education, school community, or those four different categories. With regards to action steps, in the staffing and personnel, I have multiple action steps, but as far as this is concerned, what we're doing here today and presenting, it definitely aligns to the action steps of the two-way communication, constant feedback, and the opportunity to improve job satisfaction. We believe through the work of the committee, the constant communication back and forth to each of the buildings, and the hard work that the committee members did was to, in hopes, present to you a proposal that would, in fact, increase job satisfaction. And so that would align with the recruit and retain staff. We've talked about it. I've shared with you. We have 63 openings. Of those 63 openings, I have 25 certified. I'm in this position for 17 years, going on 18 years. I have never seen this many openings. And I just came back, Miss Amy Jo Troyer, the assistant director, and I just came back from a third year. It's the third year for the National Teacher Shortage Summit. And we are in the same boat as everyone else. This is a national issue, and it's not going to be resolved immediately with regards to teachers in the pipeline. So we've got to find alternative ways to attract and retain staff. So keep that in mind as we go through this presentation. I have 29 certified openings. I have a total of 10 positions that we absorbed. So through FTEs, as Mrs. Sen shared, she absorbed a third grade position and she absorbed a fourth grade position. That wasn't necessarily her choice. We didn't have the staff, and we needed to move those FTEs to another building because they had higher numbers. They were also short. If you guys recall, we talked about that as we made those moves. But one of the things you have to consider is we have a substitute pool. And we are tapped into the substitute pool because we're using long-term subs as our teacher of record. So some of our teachers are actually long-term subs that are teaching either grade level or core content classes. Not a highly qualified teacher. We want to put highly qualified teachers in front of our students every opportunity we can. So Dr. Adams mentioned the kitchen sink. I just happened to be gone on a Monday when we were briefing and came back, and this kitchen sink, this list was derived from our staff. The kitchen sink was when Dr. Adams went around and did his power hour first semester, did the listening sessions to every building, and he got feedback from the staff. That list that you see in front of you is derived from your staff. Certified and classified. Every staff member had an opportunity to participate. The list that you see in front of you, as Dr. Adams said, and he referenced in January, the kitchen sink. I'm only speaking of the 4-day school week exploration. That was not mentioned at one building. It was mentioned at multiple buildings by your staff. It was mentioned by your staff. This is not a top-down, we want to do a 4-day school week, because that was not on my radar when I came back because I missed that Monday. We're now having a committee because we need to literally look at all these options, okay? So this was completely driven by our staff. So I can't reiterate it, but I'm just going to say it. Where did the idea come from? It came from our staff, okay? who created and shaped the committee? The committee was, who do you decide to put on the committee? We decided to take the teacher of the year. Okay. A representative from every building. And then we felt like we needed to have LNEA because our teachers are part of a union. So we had a representative. Then we have the finance person and a couple other people. And I know Sarah's going to talk a little bit more in detail and describe that, but it was completely derived from the committee. And then everything that will be presented to you as far as the actual final product was the staff. The staff made the suggestions. The staff kept coming back, and we have multiple copies of the draft. We'll talk about that, but this is completely driven by your staff. I'm going to turn it over to one of our members of our committee.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Van Botley. I am a third grade teacher at Anthony Elementary. This is my 9th year teaching within the district. I also spent 2 years as a sub within our district before that, and 7 years as a paraprofessional. I like to call myself a lifelong pioneer because I also attended Leavenworth School District from pre-K through 12th grade. And I have the privilege of being the parent of a pioneer. So as Amy mentioned, we decided to have a member from each building, and why not choose our teacher of the year to be our committee member. So we have Liz Anstein, Ben Hutchcraft, Dawn Terrain, Lacey Arnold, myself, Sarah Davis, and Laura Meyer, as well as our LNEA co-president, Sean Murphy, a district admin representative, Scott Kessler, a member of our teaching and learning team, Michaela Heath, and Beth Maddox and Amy Sloan. And I'm going to hand you over to Michaela.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michaela Heath, and I am a former 5th and 6th grade teacher here within the district. This is my 11th year as a pioneer, and I also serve right now as the district literacy coach on the teaching and learning team. So we're going to go ahead and look at the timeline of how we got here right now. So first and foremost, the district actually began researching and created a draft for that 4-day school week back in October of 2022. And so that's kind of where it began. So it didn't get created overnight. This is something that we've been looking at here for a little while. And then once the teachers, that idea derived from them again in the fall, it became another idea like, yes, this is something that we should continue to explore. So then in December, a committee was developed, like was just mentioned, from our teachers of the year and some representatives from each building. And we came together to have conversations about what that 4-day school week would look like, what's best for our students, what's best for our staff. And then we would all go back to our respective teams, our buildings, and we would share what we've learned, what we found, gather questions, comments, concerns, come back together as a committee, and then revise any kind of draft that we've done. So all in all, we had over 5 drafts created before we kind of landed on one that we thought would best suit us. With that draft, we then were able to survey all of the staff, both classified and certified staff within the district. And then based off of those results, we used that as a key element to see, should we continue this process? And the answer was yes. And so then we went through and we were able to survey our parents and our families. So that survey was sent out at the end of February. When that data was returned, then we were also able to secure anonymous input from high school students in grades 9 through 11 using Thought Exchange. And that is what brings us here today in front of you.
So as Amy said before, why are we looking at a 4-day school week? Ultimately, to recruit and retain staff. As Ms. Sen has mentioned and Ms. Sloan has mentioned, I'm a part of a team, 3rd grade team at Anthony, that we had a position absorbed because we could not get the staff. So we have had a higher number of students in our classes, along with a higher number of behaviors. And this isn't just at Anthony in 3rd grade, this is across the district. So we believe that by going to a 4-day week, we can attract those teachers that we need to fill those positions. Independence, Missouri, when they went to a 4-day week, they saw over 400% increase in applicants. So, and our hopes is we are going to see similar results to that if we were to adopt a 4-day school week. It will also allow increased collaboration and planning for our teachers, not just within our own grade level and our own building, but it's been since before COVID, since I've been able to get together with all third grade teachers throughout the district. And this also allows for vertical planning. So we have several huge jumps for students from kindergarten to first grade. This will allow those teachers to get together and help make that transition better for our students, along with 4th to 5th and 8th to 9th. This will also allow for consistent and equitable PLC time. These are our professional learning communities. This is where we look at our student data, which then drives our instruction, excuse me. As of right now, I get 45 to 60 minutes of this time a week, whereas other buildings such as the high school, they get double that. They get 125 minutes per week to look at their data that's going to drive their instruction. So this is going to allow for more equitable PLC time and hopefully increase our scores. We're also looking at this to reduce absences for students and staff. By having a designated day a week where parents can schedule appointments for their children and they're not losing instructional time. Also, our staff, they can do the same thing. And then they don't have the added stress of having to create sub-plans. Not to mention the added stress of when we can't get subs, our teammates are taking on additional students in their classroom. And ultimately, we think this will improve our school culture.
So obviously, we've talked about the process. Now we're going to dive into the surveys and how the surveys were derived and the outcomes. And so I'm going to turn it over to Miss Michaela to kind of talk about the outcomes.
Yes, ma'am. All right, the first one we're going to look at is the staff survey results. So out of 557 staff members, we had 363 participants. And this included both certified and classified. So within that 363 participants, it equaled out to be 65% of our overall staff that had input. And out of that 65%, 63 of them were certified staff members, 32 of them were classified staff members, and that last 5% was the administrative staff that had responded. And so you can kind of see overall that immediately we had 46% of our staff members approve that they were in favor of this 4-day school week. We had 25% that were not in favor. We had 12% that did not have a preference. And we had 17% that at this time they were undecided. And so some of you may have seen the family survey that went out. There were only 2 options on there, either a yes or a no. And so the staff members had more options initially as we looked at it. And so when we look at that no preference, if we added it up to that top one, we would see that 58%, so almost 60% of our staff are either in favor of or content with continuing to pursue a 4-day school week. And then we had that 17 at the bottom. And so they were undecided. After they submitted that they were undecided, they were invited and had the opportunity to add in comments, questions, concerns within the survey that then us as the committee were able to kind of sift through and answer. So we had a live Q&A that we were answering questions and trying to clarify as much as we could throughout this process. And so that Q&A kind of encapsulated all of those different pieces that were given to us. And so after all of that clarification, then we started seeing a little bit more additional support once they were able to make a more informed decision about whether they are or are not in favor of a 4-day school week. So that's the overall staff survey results. And now we're going to look a little bit closer at 2 additional questions that were included there. We kind of zoom in. So I'm going to read those big top ones for you. But we're looking at both the potential benefits and then the potential challenges or concerns of incorporating a 4-day school week here at Leavenworth. So the top 5 on the left-hand side are the potential benefits. The top 5 that really stuck out the most was the positive impact on recruitment of new staff. And so having fully staffed buildings is going to lighten the load of the staff that we have in there, because we'll have all of those positions filled versus having to absorb other positions. Another one was the increased retention of our already qualified staff. We have fantastic staff, we have fantastic teachers, and we want to keep them here. But what are some ways that we can do that? The third one is the ability to collaborate by grade level, content area, and between other buildings. Just like Sarah had mentioned earlier, we don't have many opportunities, if any, to be able to have that kind of collaboration. So what a fantastic thing that we would be able to help implement. The fourth one that is up on that top 5 was the improved work-life balance. So something to think about, that whenever we're driving through the area on late in the evening or over the weekends, and there's always cars at those buildings, right? There's staff members that are continuously working overtime to best serve our students. Always there prepping, planning, spending their time away from their own families sometimes, their own personal time, to be able to best serve our families here in Leavenworth. And so thinking of that extra day where of maybe being able to balance their own work, life, mental health kind of area as well. And then our fifth one was additional time to intentionally plan their lessons, which is always a concern and a need of our teachers on a daily basis. On the right-hand side, you'll see the potential challenges or concerns that the teachers could see happening within a 4-day school week if that were something that we were going to pursue. And the top 2 that you guys can see there pretty drastically in the yellow and orange are going to be the lack of parent and student support that they perceived might happen, or the impact on childcare for those non-instructional days. And so we're going to look a little bit more specifically at that data here in just a moment. But another one that I wanted to highlight was that top one, the green, which is the effect on student learning outcomes. And currently there's not, enough data within our kind of current demographic that gives us statistically significant outcomes either way, wherever they land, positive or negative, on the 4-day school week. But we do know that if we're able to be fully staffed, then that will be able to limit our class sizes, which then will potentially limit our behavioral issues, which then can, with that combination of that and additional planning time, is going to give us more of an opportunity to have those better and higher academic outcomes. And is that going to happen automatically? No, but holistically, that's a direction that we really hope to go. Because right now, as we know that what we've been doing over and over, and we're not seeing the benefits that we want to see. We're expecting different outcomes and they just aren't happening. So if we want to see that change, we're going to have to kind of make a change, right? Make a shift. All right, passing it on to the parents and families.
Alrighty, so we're going to take a look at the parent and family survey. I myself participated in the survey as a parent. You can see that there were 646 participants in this survey. The survey was sent out to the first contact listed for each student, and we got those email addresses from our student enrollment, okay? And I think it's important to remember that we have a large number of families that have multiple students within our district. So they didn't fill out multiple surveys, they filled out that one survey for their entire family. Taking a look at it, we see that 65% of our families are in favor of a 4-day school week for the 24-25 school year. And so adding on to that, we asked what the families would consider in order to support that 4-day school week. And our families reported that they would consider a longer school day with a later school end time. So not tacking on those additional minutes at the beginning of the day, putting those at the end of the day. Our parents are also willing to begin the school year a little earlier and end a little later. One of the main concerns for our staff was that childcare on those Mondays. And we see that 57% of our families are not going to need childcare for those Mondays, while less than 20% are uncertain at this time about childcare for those Mondays, even though we are offering a 5th day option for every student at no cost. And then similar to the staff, we asked our parents, what do we see are the potential benefits and the challenges for having a 4-day school week? Our parents reported that having time to schedule appointments is a benefit, along with our student and staff well-being. It also offers a more consistent schedule. Currently, we have 20 out of our 41 weeks this year that are not full 5-day weeks. So we are not currently operating a full 5-day-a-week schedule at the moment. And 6 of these weeks that we are not in on 5 days, 6 of those land on Mondays where we're not in session. And then, of course, parents also think that it's important to recruit and retain our staff. The impact that, or the challenge that they see is the impact of a longer school day for our students, which we are being sensitive to that. And Ms. Sloan will talk about the minutes that we are going to have those students within our classroom.
Okay, so our last subgroup that we tried to gain feedback from was our students. This thought exchange was only sent to 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade. We did not survey the seniors because they would not be impacted by this next year. And so the thought exchange, just for those of you that are not familiar, what you're seeing in front of you is we had 348 participants. And of those 348, there were 286 thoughts. So it's completely confidential. What they do is they share an idea. And once they share the idea or their ideas, they then can rate on a scale of 1 to 5 everyone's thoughts. And so while there were only 286 thoughts, we had 6,784 that were rated. So our student, I made a suggestion, and then I got to read everybody else's, and then I got to rank them based off of my interest. And so what I hope to share with you are just the top 10 here next. So just from the themes, these are the first 5 from our students. Again, this is grades 9 through 11. The students overall, the majority of them were in favor of the 4-day school week based off of those who participated, mind you. And just some comments, the themes that were on this first sheet, you'll see to improve social, physical, mental, and emotional health. A lot is going on as a student and I'm stressed out. This is a good idea. This would allow for more time for homework and catch up. And then on this second set of 5, very similar comments, but they then go on to 20 minutes is unnoticed for a 3-day break, and then the extra day to get stuff done and to relax. So those were kind of what the students' responses were and how they rated as far as the student exchange. And you received all of the outcomes of the student exchange.
All righty. So as we gathered those Q&As and a lot of more of that feedback, we kind of compiled a list of some of the top 4 things that were just recurring. They kept coming up to the front of the plate. And so we had the first one was cost savings, because many of the districts that go towards a 4-day school week are looking for cost savings. However, that's not our intent. This district is not trying to pursue a 4-day school week to cut costs. Because all of our buildings are going to be open 5 days a week. They're going to be open for students every day. So we're not pursuing it for that intent. We're pursuing it for the recruitment and for the retention of our staff. And then staff pay was another big piece that came up. And it's really important to note that that changing calendar is not going to lower the pay of any staff member, of any employee within our district. No one will receive less pay if we go towards a 4-day school week. Extracurricular activities, especially in our secondary areas, practice and games will continue to happen on Mondays as previously scheduled. And there's transportation is going to happen on those Mondays as previously scheduled. So if the student attends that 5th day, that transportation will still be in place if they qualified for it originally. And so those extracurricular activities, same thing. if transportation is required, we're going to make sure that we can put all of our best efforts in to ensure that our kiddos can make it to those after school activities, even if they don't participate in the fifth day enrichment. And then lastly, our fifth day options. And so that was a big question. What does that fifth day look like? And so it's going to depend on the building. It's going to depend on the grade level, what kind of opportunities are available. But there'll be extended learning opportunities through the enrichment learning opportunities that will be available. Community partners such as the YMCA, Pioneer Career Center, KCKCC, all of these different areas are going to be pooling together to make sure that we're able to support our kiddos with a fifth day option. And again, that'll look different from kindergarten into high school, where there's going to be different outreach opportunities available.
All right, so we're going to take a look at one of those fifth day options. This is just a sample bell schedule. This would be more for elementary. Students, like we said, would still come in and they would still receive breakfast. So they'll arrive, get their breakfast, then move into morning activities. This could be similar to a soft start or morning meeting. And then they would move into their enrichment session. They would also get lunch and wellness, which would be like that movement or recess time just to get them up and moving. And then ending with another enrichment session. This is similar to our summer school or our extended learning at Earl Lawson. But every Monday, students can choose to come and participate in these fifth day enrichment options. Busing will still run as normal. If they receive busing on any other day, they are going to get it on a Monday. Of course, these times could change depending on that staggering of busing as needed. And then to the right, this was one of the questions that we asked parents. What things would you like your students to participate in on these fifth day enrichment opportunities? And as you can see, there are many different options for our students, all the way from kindergarten through our high school students.
So now we're going to move into the calendar considerations. So this is what you have in front of you. I just want to bring to your attention, those of you that are looking on the screen and following along, on your left, looking at the screen, that is the board approved calendar that you approved back in December of 23. What we've added is the red boxes, so they identify what would change slightly if you would adopt on the right side the 4-day proposed calendar, the 4-day school week. The 4-day school week proposed that's in front of you is adding 20 minutes to the day. So I'm going to go into it a little bit more and explain the differences. And some of them have already been mentioned, but I just want to go through them again. If you would approve the 4-day school week, it would require that school start 3 days earlier and end 1 day later. 3 days earlier in the first semester, and then we would end school 1 day later. Students would have an additional 20 minutes as of right now, up to 40 minutes, depending on where we land with regards to negotiations, because part of that is within the teacher duty day of the Article 6. And then winter break, it would be shortened just slightly. And then, of course, the optional Monday enrichment would be every Monday. So every Monday, a student would have the opportunity to come in and receive services. So in the state of Kansas, by the Kansas Department of Education, we are required to have so many student contact hours. And student contact hours, there at the very bottom of the screen, for those of you that are unfamiliar or don't recall, we are only required in the state of Kansas to have 1,116 hours. That is to meet the requirement of the state of Kansas. However, every school district, we're no different, every school district has additional hours. So on the far left is the board approved hours. If that is the board approved calendar from the December. It'd be 1,169 hours. In the middle there is what I just presented to you. The 4-day school week would be 1,146 hours. And yes, it is slightly lower than our proposed in December. However, I want to bring your attention to something. The first line you see is the number of days, followed by timesing by the number of hours the student is in school. We are able to count the parent-teacher conference hours. We then get to count half of our professional development hours. When our teachers are receiving professional development, we only get to count half of that. You'll notice in the far left, the board approved, teachers only have 38 hours of professional development for the course of the year. By this approved, by the 4-day school week, that would increase to 119 because they're off every Monday and they're getting the same amount of time to prepare for lesson plans, professional development, and things of that. So that's where the difference is. We're putting more investment in our teachers, allowing them more time to prepare for quality lessons Tuesday through Friday. And then on the far right, I mentioned this because we are in the middle of negotiations as a part of with our teachers union. And so if we receive an additional 20 minutes, which is what the board has asked for as your representative, that's what we're asking for, above and beyond. And so then that would equate to 1,178 hours, which would be well above both proposals. So what is our commitment? When we went through this, you knew what our priorities and why. We've kind of repeated ourselves multiple times. But in order to even consider a 4-day school week, we have to have the state requirement of the student contact hours, which we have given you. We would increase the collaboration and planning time so it would be fair and equitable across all levels, and we would increase our professional learning. We have to have time to talk about the data. To change the data, you have to analyze the data, and we need to allow our teachers and our administration that time. And so the next steps, as you all are aware, we are recommending one of these three, and it's, of course, option 1 would be to approve the 4-day school week if the board so chooses. Option 2 is to approve the 4-day school week, not for next year, but the following year. And or option 3, the board does not wish to pursue a 4-day school week, and then we just need to know the direction of the board. And at this time, we'll take questions.
Well, I guess I might as well go. First of all, thank you to everyone that worked on this and put time into it. My comments aren't direct towards any person, team, group, any such thing like that. So I do not want to be misunderstood. I've sat here for roughly 26 months, I think, counting right. And this is the first time that I've had so much of an outpouring of communication from the staff. And that means the world to me because that's, obviously a big deal, the teachers. And so I just, and I'll probably say this again in my board comments at the end, because I really want to emphasize how important that is. And what breaks my heart is that the culture we have here in USD 453 prevents them from being here today, prevents them from being behind the podium, prevents them from being in these seats. And until that culture is fixed, no matter the amount of money that we throw or these types of ideas, it's just not going to improve. And I fear that it's going to get worse. So what I'm going to do is just kind of read some of the feedback. I could be here for a long time if I read everything. So I apologize to those who sent me letters that I'm not going to read them all, but I again encourage you to come and read them yourself. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of these if you'll bear with me. PD time is largely already a waste of time, unnecessary. I don't need to come in and play icebreakers 2 days a month. Another paragraph. The survey staff was sent out and the information being relayed seems to not line up with what the survey asked staff. Staff were asked if we would be interested in a 4-day school week. The options were yes, no, or undecided. A large portion of the staff indicated undecided. It seems like the undecideds and yeses were combined to imply that staff wants a 4-day school week. In reality, many of us added in other sections of the survey, we are concerned about the calendar setup, the amount of time we have as students, and how much this will affect student outcomes. We are asking for more information, but don't seem to be getting it. Rather, they are taking our questions as yes, we want a 4-day school week. Based on what we have heard, the plan is so far, the majority of us say no. If the students are going to be allowed to come on Mondays, then have them at their desk learning from a teacher. And I loved that coming from a teacher. Multiple studies show the long-term negative effects of 4-day versus 5-day. So from the research that I did before, Dr. Adams or whoever wanted to move the district towards 4-day, it's been going on roughly 10 years. I've not seen a single report that academics go up, and I feel like that should be this district's focus. I've heard the reasoning that, well, if we can get more staff, we can do this, we can do that. These districts that have the staff, you mentioned independence again, I have not seen it where it increases student academic numbers. So if you have the data to prove that, I would love to look over it, and it would have to outweigh all the data that says they stay the same or they go down. Another letter said the majority of us say no, and another one said, do your own research, the data seems faulty. One of the things I wanted to just kind of ask you to speak a little bit more about, just for transparency's sake, is one of the comments that was made during the presentation. No one will receive less pay. And so are you talking about keeping all staff working no less hours, making no less pay regardless of their current position?
So all staff, so first off, you have two different subgroups. You have certified are under contract, and they are by days. Then you have classified, who are at-will employees, who are hourly employees. So our teachers are still going to be under contract, and they will work whatever days we set per the agreement. Our classified, they would receive the same number of hours that they're currently working and or potentially could work more. For example, a paraprofessional, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Rodelberger, is 32 hours, anywhere from 32 to 36 hours. Is that correct? They have the potential 32 to 36 hours because they only work the time in which the students, because that's all that we can actually regain the dollars, recoup those dollars. They have the potential, because we're extending, and then we're offering Monday, so that you're extending your day, right? So there's more minutes there. And then we're offering Monday services. They have the potential to potentially work up to 40 hours.
Some of them or all of them?
Our hope would be all of them. That would be our hope, where we can get all the supports. Now, we want to provide professional development for our support staff as well. So not just our certified, our supports, our paraprofessionals, our teachers' assistants, they need some professional development. They need some, depending on what it may be, but they would need some professional. So we would hope that they would have an opportunity on a quarterly basis, hopefully, to receive some type of professional development as well. We have to continue to grow in order to develop and learn, in order to teach our kids. We as educators need to continue to receive the professional development. You've said it here. I've heard you say it. I've heard multiple. We're not happy with our outcomes, our student outcomes. We can keep doing what we're doing and get the same outcomes, or we can try to do things, make some changes and try different things. And so that's what the 4-day school week is. It is definitely to recruit and retain, but we heard from our staff, the majority of our staff, that they were in favor of this.
So one of the things, sorry, I'm just going to make a note.
No, you're fine. Did I answer your question, Ms. Freed?
I have more.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I have more too.
So Now I'm trying to go back to what I was going to ask you. Okay, I'm going to move on. It might come back to me.
No, yes, sir.
So let's go to the professional development hours that were in your slide.
Yes.
So if I'm reading your slide correctly, we currently have 19. We're going to 59.
I'm going to pull it up because I don't want to misquote.
Me too.
So what is your question?
Okay, so like on the BOE approved 5-day week, that bottom number, PD hours 38 times half is 19. And then proposed 4-day week, PD hours 119 times 0.5 is 59. And pending negotiations, the last column, PD hours 119 times 0.5 is 59. So currently 19 hours of our PD time is counting towards the hours mandatory from the state.
And that's the calculation that every school district in the state of Kansas uses. You count those three things: the student sitting in front of the seat, the parent-teacher conferences, and then professional development. All of that counts towards student contact.
So
There's three components that make that student contact hour.
is this number correct? 1,116 hours of learning are what the state wants.
That is what the state requirement is and has been.
So then if I'm reading your slide correct, we would have 40 hours more that the students aren't getting contact, but that are going towards those 1,116 hours. If I look at the 19, the difference between the 19 and 59, that's 40 hours, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear to the public that the kids are going to get 40 less hours of instructional time on your plan.
No, that is incorrect.
Okay, so can you state that for me, please?
If you look up above, for total hours.
Yeah.
Are you looking at the total? Or are you looking at the hours? There's
Well,
difference.
Right, but the
We would
professional,
increase professional development hours.
and you're taking that time away from the kids that they currently have.
So 1,134 is what you approved, Mrs. Reed, back in December. If you go over to the right, under the 4-day school week, it would decrease to 1,071 off of the proposed that's up here. If you
Right.
keep going over to the right, it would be 1,103. So those are students sitting right in front of me. Then if you go down to parent-teacher conferences, that doesn't change. And then what would change is the professional development hours. So to answer your question, we are asking for more hours for professional development on those Mondays.
And I apologize, I know I'm not saying this very well, but basically one of the things that was an online discussion was more hours of PD. Staff don't need more hours of PD. They already see it as fairly large waste of time. And then using more hours of professional development to get to the state hours.
So when I say PD, that also includes PLC, professional learning communities.
Yeah.
So it would be our hope to increase our professional learning communities. Yes, there may be some PD as in the definition that you're describing, but the hope would be what we have identified and told our teachers is teacher readiness, which is planning lessons and working on our lesson plans and changing our lesson plans and enhancing our lesson plans. Yes.
So that could be done individually, not just as whole group.
It would be done both.
Yeah. Okay. Did we want to go down the line and ask questions, or like each person?
Next.
Are you finished? Did you?
If
have
it
one?
comes back to me, I'll say, but
Okay.
my other question is next.
One of my questions was on the participants. We stated that we had 646. How many actual families did we send out the email to?
Yep, I will tell you. So in the parent survey, 2,751 were sent, of which we went ahead because one of you asked. That meant that we had a 92% delivery rate. So based on, it's garbage in, garbage out. I was an old computer teacher. So if the parent did not type in the right email, or if they've changed their email, or if they haven't updated it, then it could have maybe gotten lost, or in spam, but we have a 92% delivery.
And then another question is, one of the things that was stated is the YMCA.
Mhm.
What YMCA will help participate in
No,
helping?
so currently, you're familiar with the before and after school program that was Horizon Kids is now YMCA. They're still going to operate in our buildings and utilize. So some families may just want to continue with that model because they already have those connections. They like what's being offered. So that's in addition to, and that is the only thing that would be paid.
Okay, does the Women's Y, are they coming into the building or will they?
This is actually separate from
Okay.
from that. I'm familiar with what you're referencing. This is a separate organization that came in from originally Johnson County and Wyandotte. It's utilized in other school districts.
And they'll be in our buildings?
Yes, it is now. It was the old Horizon Kids through the foundation. I point at Miss Judy because she's a member of the foundation, but so it's just replacing the Horizon Kids. So it's still up and operational, and there will be families that want to stay with that want to pay on those Mondays because there's the same person, our kids are used to it or whatever, that would be an option.
Okay, and then this one's Miss Van Botley. How many current students do you have in your class size?
I currently have 23 enrolled on my roster. This is down from the beginning of the year. As you know, we have students constantly enrolling, unenrolling within our district. So myself and my other two teammates at Anthony, our numbers have gone up and down all year. So yeah, I currently have 23. I've had upwards of, I think, 25 or 26. But I believe at the beginning of the year, we were projected to have close to 30 with that missing teacher.
Okay. And then I have another one. On the teachers of the years that were dedicated for each building, did you have conversations with your staff that are in the building, or how did that play out?
So I sent out whole staff emails to keep them updated. I also sent out an email stating that I was in my classroom after school. Please come in, ask questions, give me your concerns, your thoughts. So I tried to be pretty transparent with everyone within the building by using those staff emails just to keep them updated. But I also offered that face-to-face time with them if they chose to come in.
Okay, thank you.
I would just add, I know Laura's here as well from Lawson, but the other thing is at staff meetings, they were given opportunities to get up and give updates every time they had their staff meetings.
Okay, thank you. And then another thing, on the bigger class sizes, you stated that you have had more this year. Did you see more behaviors when you had more students, or you see about the same, or?
I definitely saw more behaviors this year with the increased class sizes, yes.
All right, thank you, dear.
I found my sheet, if that's okay. Two more, and then I hope. So if I understood the other side correctly, 25% of staff were saying no on the.
That is correct.
So I was trying to figure out what percentage of staff are you hoping to be able to add to with these supposed influx of applications that we'll get? What percentage are we looking to fill going to a 4-day? What's our hope?
100%.
I mean, like right now we obviously have staff.
Yeah.
So what percentage is that gap of unfilled positions that you believe going to 4-day will fill? What percent?
I guess I don't understand the question.
The total staff and then the missing staff is what? Is it 10% of our total staff that's missing?
So we have 320 licensed if they were, or 302, is that correct? I don't have that in front of me. 302. So we currently have the 29 openings. So you're looking at 10%.
In round numbers, if everybody attends on a day, we are at 90% capacity.
Yeah.
And as I hear every Monday, we have approximately 10 to 15% of our staff that are absent. So what I will tell you is that we are operating at approximately 75% capacity on any given day.
So if I understand the answer, we're looking to gain about 10% more staff to add to our staff. but we might lose 25% of the staff we have that don't want to go to a 4-day. Am I calculating that correctly?
No, because when they said no, that didn't mean that they were going to leave, nor did the 64% that said yes.
Right, okay.
So you could look at it at 64% said yes, so I want to keep those 64%
Right.
plus the 12% that said I'm indifferent. So now that puts me at 60%. You know what I mean? So we just gave you the numbers as they were. We weren't predicting what no meant or what yes meant. We thought it meant no and yes. I mean, as far as truly.
I mean, I wouldn't have, maybe it wouldn't be bad to poll and say, are you going to leave the district over this? Definitely a lot of the letters I received said for the first time in my tenure, and I've been here X amount of years, and I don't want to go anywhere else, but I'm leaving if you guys do this. So the other thing I was going to ask was, out of the positions that we don't have
But
filled.
Mrs. Reed, I've had feedback that says if my class sizes, in fact, over the course of this year, how many people have left mid-year because of their class sizes or because of behaviors.
Behaviors I would agree with. I haven't.
Class sizes as well.
So hopefully last, and we'll let everybody talk here more than me. So the percentage of the positions that we don't have filled.
Yes. For example, tomorrow I'm going to be in Columbia for the Mojo. It's the largest statewide recruiting fair, and there'll probably be 300 recruiters there and maybe 50 applicants. So we're all fighting to get these applicants.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, I'm going to be at Emporia. Same situation. I've already told you what KU was. Wichita, I mean, the pool is so minimal.
Right.
And then it's not going to change in the next couple of years. So we got to do anything that we can. And I will tell you, at recruiting fairs, there are kids asking about, do you offer a 4-day school week? Jake Potter was at a recruiting fair and it came up. I mean, it's happening. They're asking. These kids coming out of college are asking about what benefits that you offer. Not only financial, not only your fringe, but
Right.
what other benefits do you offer?
So I think my final question is, how many staff members are part of our teaching and learning department that aren't classroom teachers?
How many teachers do I have that are a part of the teaching and learning department?
Staff members that we employ and pay strictly out of teaching and learning that do not have their own classroom.
She's referring to the IFs and I assume some of the coaches.
So 14 with the ESSER positions that are going away.
Okay, thank you.
My question, on the Mondays, I heard you say that all of the buildings are going to be open? All of the buildings in the district are going to be open for Monday enrichment activities?
So
Right.
yes, with the caveat that potentially once if this moves forward, we would survey our families as to participation. There is the potential to consolidate if you don't have a large participation. We do that now in summer school. We only house summer school at one building. That would be the only reason that we may consolidate if we don't have a large participation. But yes, it would be our hope to offer the enrichment the 5th day at all of our buildings.
Okay. But my guess is you're not going to have nearly as many students, so that seems like a lot of extra cost. And if you're running enrichment activities in all of those buildings, that sounds pretty expensive. And then if you consolidate, how are we doing transportation? Because if, my kid walks to school because I'm 2 blocks away, and then they're going to go on Mondays and it's much further than that. So are we doing transportation?
So
I'm just, because I understand, the idea behind this, but it's like, I'm trying to picture that Monday and I'm just seeing dollar signs, because we're going to have less kids, all the buildings open. Now we're going to have to transport, and then the enrichment activities, some of the things that were listed, field trips or doing I mean, that's,
Yeah, so a
that's
lot of-
added cost and less instruction time. And that's kind of concerning. And I don't think the community is going to be very happy when, if we go to 4 days and then we go back and say, and by the way, it's going to be more expensive and we need more money.
So we don't anticipate any additional cost for operations. There is the potential, some of our support staff may not want to work on those Mondays, so then you wouldn't need as many support staff. We're going to need to base it off of our participation and how many people say that they're going to participate. So just as we do right now in our summer school, as well as our
Bless you.
extended learning at Lawson, they sign up for it. So we have to have a count, just like you have to have a count when you do for lunch and preparing meals. You got to get a count. So we would need our parents to let us know if their kids are participating. A lot of our field trips, Mrs. Overby, have always been funded through the foundation in years past. So I wouldn't anticipate that changing.
Except that they might be on Mondays where the other kids don't participate in that.
Well, it'd be extra. It wouldn't necessarily, when we were thinking of field trips, some of the school districts, it varies. We looked all over the nation at ideas. We're going to create what's best for our kiddos. Maybe we don't do field trips. Maybe that day, though, for college visits, it's a great day for college visits. It's a great day for interns. It's a great day to volunteer. We have a lot of very kids at the high school that we just seen the citizen of the award given. We have a lot of kids at the high school that want to volunteer that need hours. And so they could help with our little kids, our younger grades with tutoring and supports. It will be an all hands on deck, and we'll be prepared to be ready to go in 5 months if the board gives us permission to go ahead and move forward.
Okay. One of the things that I received several emails about is who's doing the supervision on those Mondays. And it sounds like that would be classified staff. And who's handling behaviors, because I did receive several emails from classified staff that are concerned about, so now we're going to babysit on Mondays and then.
So one of the things that we really want to try to utilize on these Mondays, we have 2 really good universities just in our backyard, St. Mary's, as well as we have a great partnership with Benedictine College. Those student teachers, those future educator, they need practicum hours. They can utilize it on Monday. They can help us. We have a lot of very highly qualified subs who are retired teachers or former educators who just choose not to be a classroom teacher 5 days a week or 4 days a week. So we're going to utilize the resources that we have, not only internally with our subs, but also utilize our neighboring universities as well. KCK is another one that has resources, students that are wanting to obtain their education, so it'll give them an opportunity. As far as the behavior, we have building administrators that will be in every building. And or just like in the summer, you actually allow us the autonomy to hire interns, admin interns. They are licensed future administrators that want to kind of dip their toe in the administration, and so they could also be used as well. So as far as the behaviors, those would be done through the administration.
One more question about the Mondays. That's not an instruction day. They're not required to be in school.
Correct.
So we're going to have to get a commitment on that and then on numbers because you have to staff it. So what happens when you get basically chronic absenteeism?
It will not count towards because you would be approving a 4-day school week. So this is just like summer school. This is just like your extended learning. That attendance is not taken because we've already met the requirement within the 4 days. This is just, think of Monday as a summer school or an enrichment day. It does not count towards your total hours. It's added.
I guess what I'm getting at is like accountability of where the kid is, because if they don't have to be in school and they don't have,
They can be
we were
if the
talking about
parents
this the other day.
choose.
What happens if I want to send my middle schooler? I'm not comfortable with them being unsupervised on Monday because I'm working or whatever, and so we're gonna pick up that 5th day. and my middle schooler says, you know, I went to work and my middle schooler says, I'm not going. And I just, you know, how are we keeping track of kids?
So if a parent told me they were going to sign up, we're going to call and check on the kid. I mean, that's, if they're supposed to be there, we're going to make sure that, you know, check on the kid. And then mom says, oh, sorry, forgot to let you know they're sick or we're not sending them. That happens all the time.
Do you mean like the robocall that we get now for attendance? Or do you mean a physical call?
Well, we haven't ironed all that out, but we could surely, I mean, with the numbers, I'm sure that we could do both, Mrs. Reed. That's not something that we do both right now. But you are correct. We have an automated system for our current attendance. Yes.
That's all for now.
So one of the main things that I've noticed throughout all of this is that there was, in my opinion, a lack of full participation of staff if we had over 200 staff members not participate in the survey. And then we had, what was it, 300 students participate out of potentially 800 if we didn't survey the seniors. And then of the families, we only had 600 families participate out of almost 3,000. I don't think we're getting good information. Not to say that the information that we have isn't great, but I really don't think that we have enough. I feel like we as a district have moved really quickly on this and didn't give enough time to process the information to be able to ask the right questions. Like I took the parent survey because I still have a high school student, and I feel like knowing, I mean, being on the board, I had prior knowledge that we were looking at this. I felt like the survey that I was given as a parent was telling me that we were doing this and making me answer the questions as if we were already doing a 4-day. And that I really feel like it skewed the information that was done. And not, I think the survey itself could and should have been done better and asked different questions. I felt like I was led, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I feel the same way.
And I received the same emails that everybody else received. I heard from the thing that was most astounding to me is I heard from staff members that I don't know. Usually I hear from my friends. I love teachers. Everybody knows I love teachers. I collect you throughout the years. I've had kids in our district for 22 years. So I've got a lot of teachers. I have tons that reached out that I don't know. And I didn't respond to everybody. I apologize that I didn't respond to everybody. The emails were overwhelming, honestly, and in depth, and had great information in them, and they were super appreciated. And I personally would like to see us kind of pump the brakes, not say no, but slow down, get more information, come up with a more solid plan. I would like to go slower, wait a little bit. I understand that we need staff. Honestly, I feel like this is truly a kitchen sink effort, and that nationally education is viewed like crap, and nobody wants to be a teacher because they know that they're going to be treated poorly by everybody, our politicians, our parents, our community members. And so just putting a 4-day school week isn't going to fix it. I mean, I want it to. I want our staff members to get the time that they can have to plan. I want them to be able to have their IEP times. We haven't even talked about that. When would they do their IEPs?
So the Mondays, there can be dedicated time for that. That hasn't been ironed out.
Right.
But that is a potential for
'Cause
Mondays.
especially our special ed teachers have tons of IEPs that they have to write and facilitate, and like they're already overwhelmed with that. Like I think it's a great idea. I just don't think that we're hitting the mark yet.
To answer your question, IEPs would be held at whatever time that staff members and parents determine was appropriate scheduled time for them. Mondays do not have to be dedicated to IEPs. In fact, our department would advise against it just because that limits the amount of time that families have available to them to be able to attend those meetings. So.
I know of a student that was in special education speech for a year with no improvement. And I also have talked with the department before about how we do speech lessons over Zoom. I don't know if that's still going on. But knowing those things have gone on, we're taking one less day for interventions because the students won't be there to pull those kids out and work on speech or whatever their case is. And that, you know, we talk about fully funding special education all the time, but now we're taking a whole day out of the week where those kids can be pulled for interventions, and that bothers me a lot.
So, excuse me, we are still in some pockets having to provide special education services or speech language services virtually because we don't have staff.
Yeah.
Because of the recruitment and the retention. As far as not having available time to provide services, those are individual team meetings. And so what we would ask teams to do is come together and determine if a student's services needed to be increased, stay the same, or decreased. And again, those are all individual student decisions based on that student's needs. So.
Sorry, Daniel, I didn't mean to.
No,
interrupt you.
you're perfectly fine. That is something to think about as well. I mean, we're still going to have essentially the same contact hours, but have we looked at, because I mean, if on the proposed hours, we were looking at 20 minutes more and then adding another 20 minutes if the negotiated agreement happens. So that's another 40 minutes. Is there any kind of burnout that we're expecting from having the extended long day? Because we still need the educational time to happen. We can't really fit in breaks because we need them learning. But like, how is that going to look at the high school? Are we going to have 4 days of 90-minute classes or?
No, the 7-day period right now is looking right around 54 minutes.
Okay.
You've got to calculate in, there's lunch, there's plan. I mean, there's lots of different things that happen depending on whether they have their seminar, advisory, power hours, things like that. But the high school, if they went a straight 7, you're looking right around 54 minutes.
So will daily plan time still happen for teachers if we do?
Yes, because that's part of the negotiated agreement.
Okay.
Yep. So in the negotiated agreement, it's over the course of a week. So what we're asking to do is to front load it the majority on Mondays, and then whatever the requirement is within the agreement, we would still fulfill that obligation.
Can I propose that we go on a potty break and continue the rest of the questions after because we've already lost one board member. And I really need to go potty.
How about we just recess for about 8 minutes? How's that sound?
Is that okay? Okay.
Make a motion to recess for 8 minutes.
Second.
Come back here at 8:20.
There you go.
All those in favor?
There you go. Now go.
Take a vote?
Yeah, we all voted.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, she's voting no, I guess.
I voted yes.
More, and then I will pass it on. My next question is, for high school specifically, the students that would choose to come in for, I'm assuming we would mostly do like study sessions or like what we do with Cocoa Cram, things like that. What ability would they have to come and go as they saw fit? Like they were like, yes, I need to go in, I need to be able to study with my friends, but now I'm done and there's still another 4 hours.
So
Can I
Mr.
leave?
Vanek, we talked about having an AM and PM session potentially for high school students with, of course, parent permission, just like we do the release now when they go out and do some of the community, working in other buildings and things like that, or interns. We have to get parent permission that they sign off that gives their child permission to leave the building. We would do something similar. What we wouldn't want to do is not, have parents' permission to do that.
Okay. And then the last thing that I have is more of just a statement again, and not a question. It's that I really appreciate the work that the committee and Ms. Sloan and Dr. Adams that you guys have put into this. I think this all came about because how do we solve the staffing issues to ultimately increase student outcomes. And I think that even though I am currently not wanting to move forward right now, I think we still need to have these conversations and keep going. And if it does go, I think we have got a lot of questions to answer, but hopefully tonight's discussion gives us more direction and things to look forward to, and be able to better prepare our staff and our families and our students for the future. And maybe potential recruits are looking at our district and see that we're looking for solutions and we're trying, and we're not just a board that doesn't know how to work together for the future, and that we are trying. So that's it.
Mr. Murphy?
Oh, okay. One of the things, well, I'm just going to go with what concerns me. One of the things that concerns me is we were told that there would be community connections involvement with this. It wouldn't just be the parents, teachers, or students being surveyed, but that we would discuss some of this with the community. And they are the taxpayers. They're the ones that we want to dig into their pockets to help pay for some of these things. And we didn't do that. We kind of failed in the messaging in the newspaper. And this is nothing personal. But when you put out an interview in the newspaper and you say, we don't know what we're going to do with the kids yet, you can just drop them off. That doesn't give me confidence as a parent. It wouldn't give me confidence if I had a dog taking it to a boarding house. Yeah, you can bring the dog, but we're not going to be here on these days, but you can just leave them there. I've heard at least 3 times we've not ironed this out. And this is some of the things that are really important to come up and sit here and discuss changing a dynamic of our education cycle within our community. These things should have been ironed out. We should know the curriculum. We should know the processes. We should know, well, yeah, we're all going to go to the museum on this Monday, but only a quarter of the kids are attending. So that means 3/4 of the kids are never going to get that opportunity because we chose this day. And we're spending money on those kids that attend that enrichment. That's money that's not getting spent on the other kids. When if they're all in school on the same days all the time. One of the things I know all of Mr. Carney's dynamics. He's been on the board longer than I have, but we have been on the board together the 6 years that I've been on the board. And I have the unique perspective of being a parent to not just one generation, but 2 generations. My oldest of 5 is going to be 43. My youngest is 19. I graduated high school in 1979 when the Board of Education for the Nation was founded. And I have watched education degrade since the day I left high school. And I've watched what's happened to each one of my kids and how their education has progressed. And it is not as good as it used to be, sadly. And that's what we need to really work higher for is the standards. So, of course, it upsets me when I hear, well, we want to do this so we can have more teachers, but we can't guarantee we're going to have better outcomes. We can hope. Well, hope and prayer only gets us so far. And we need the numbers. We need the statistics. And right now, the statistics that are out there, this doesn't help with the kids' grades. It doesn't help them have better outcomes. And we want better outcomes for them because we want better adults when they come out of those schools. We don't want them knowing less. We want them knowing more. And that really concerns and worries me. We have culture on here. So in retention's a big one. Well, when I hear, well, if you go to 4-day, I'm leaving, and there's a good chunk of them. Well, you're back to square one because you may recruit that 10, 20% you need to take these jobs. But if you lose 10 or 20% because they don't want to do this, you're back to square one. And one of the things I have learned in raising my own kids and watching kids, or even my mother teaching, is consistency is a key. The key to early childhood intervention, early childhood education, it is the same patterns we go through. We get up, we eat breakfast, we brush our teeth, we get on the bus, we go to school. We know where we sit, we know where we go. We went with having coming back off of COVID, opening Lawson, going all year with Lawson. It was going to be the next best, greatest thing that was going to happen, and all the other schools were going to follow suit. That's not what happened. We just voted to do away with the all-year calendar, to turn around here within 60 days and say, by the way, we're going to shake up the schedule again, and we're going to throw at you this new deal of only 4 days a week. And I don't think the families are ready for that. I don't think the students are ready for that, because there is no consistency. We just shook up the bottle again and got everything all rattled. So nobody has any clear-cut expectations. And I think we need to be more consistent in our messaging. Back to the culture again, too. We can't have, I don't always get emails. I have people looking for me where I work, or they'll see me when I'm out shopping or taking the family out or whatever. And if we get a couple of new teachers in and they're upset about some of the conduct in the classrooms, we can't tell them, well, you need to get used to it. I'm paraphrasing, but you need to, it'll be okay. You need to remember, you need this job, you got to pay your student loans. That almost sounds like an implied threat to me. And I don't know why they would have that perception, but that's not a perception we want to give to even our newest educators, let alone our most seasoned ones who are really upset about this transition to a 4-day and what it would mean for our students, or having that eye-to-eye contact or that intervention time. And sometimes one of the best things of trying to find a conduct problem is by being there with the student to see the conduct. You're losing one whole day. The other problem is go back with COVID. And when parents wanted their kids back in the classroom and not online learning, one of the biggest howls that I heard was, we are not babysitters. School is not a daycare. And we're pretty much setting up a Monday daycare. And that is not what the community wants. And I don't know if anybody checked, but Fort did this several years ago, and they don't do it anymore. Just like a lot of the other schools are not doing it anymore. So I just feel like it's just something that we're grabbing on out of sheer desperation, like falling off a cliff, that we'll just grab onto anything in hopes that it's going to work, to turn around and know that we have to let it go. It's not going to work. And then there we are restructuring again. And then we fail to give a constant, consistent, evidence-based learning for our kids. That's probably enough of that right now.
Mrs. Price?
Alrighty. By virtue of going next to last, most of my issues have been addressed. I do have concerns about how some of this looks, because it feels like a rush at this point just to get into next year. But my concerns are for those, roughly 18 to 20% of our kids are on IEPs or in SPED. I've had too many parents reach out to me going, I don't know what this looks like for my kid. Okay, I have concerns. What does that look like for some of our kids? I realize it is by case-by-case basis, but there's just too many of our kids. If 20% of our population is on IEPs, that's a lot to be considering of how that's going to be affected, and we really don't know yet. And I think that's where I'd like to slow it down a little bit to figure out what does that look like. Because I also had high school staff reach out to me going, what does my day look like? I don't know. I'm not in your building now. I don't know what that will look like later. Hopefully, as part of this process, whoever your rep was talking to you to tell you what your day will look like. I don't know that. So if teachers are asking me what their day is going to look like, I know we've got issues because it's not been communicated well enough across the board. And so I think we need to slow it down, do more detailed, more deliberate planning. What is that going to look like? What will a Monday be? What will our schedule look like? How does Friday look for the high school when you've got kids leaving? And how does that affect their, where they were a 5-day, now we leave half day for Friday to go to sports, but now we're on a 4-day, now we leave a half day. What does that affect class-wise? So I think we have a lot more still to look into. Although I think this is a very great start, and I really appreciate the efforts of our committee, but I just don't think we're at the point where we can say launch for next year. There are just too many open unknowns, and especially with the comments reading the, what was it, like 40 pages of parent content. Okay, there are just too many what ifs, and I just don't think we've answered all of them enough yet to set 24, 25 saying it before. I'm not against a 4-day week if we can show ourselves that it will be beneficial. I just don't think we're there yet. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
One more quick question, if I may. We've talked about tax money and everything else, and it's clearly been said, we're not doing this to save money. Was there any financial analysis done to tell us what it was going to cost us? Was it
So
gonna
there would
cost
be
us
no-
the same of what we're paying now, or we're going to be paying more?
We don't believe there would be any additional costs. There would be no cost savings though.
No savings cost, but you don't
Neutral.
think there'll be any increase, but you're not sure. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we table this and maybe bring it back to us in 6 months.
I'd like to make a comment.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, first of all, it's kind of like she said, I've been around a long time. I've been in this community my whole life. My kids were all very successful at our high school. They went to Catholic schools, elementary, but that's no big deal. My concern is that all I've heard is this ain't gonna work. I like to solve problems and come up with solutions to problems. And bannering about things, it wasn't gonna be perfect right off the bat. I knew that. I called Dr. Ram tonight. And I said, in my mind, we should probably table this, have more discussion with the input we've got, and then look at the 25-26 school year. But, if somebody's got solutions, it's this doesn't work, give me a solution. What's the solution to get teachers in here? Give them $60,000 a year? Well, tell the legislators, have some more money for that.
That was one of the complaints I saw too, was why were there not more options provided by the district? Why was the 4-day the only thing they could come up with?
Well, it's not the only thing. That's what was decided to go with. What's your solution?
Mrs. Reed, the kitchen sink is all the other solutions. We're bringing to you just one of the lists of items. And so what we're asking for is direction from the board. And so that's why we suggested those 3 options up above.
Thank you.
As far as the parent part, it's just like the elections. This town is apathetic about education. All you gotta do is look at the election. 18% vote. So what's that tell you about people, what they're concerned about with the school district? Nothing.
There were a lot of parents that found those
Well, there was a lot that did
emails
not.
in spam and then couldn't even transfer it over to their mailbox.
Whatever. Okay.
One of
But
them was my
I-
daughter's for my granddaughter.
Okay, well,
So
I'm talking about in general, I compared it to elections, I said there'd be about 20% respond, parent-wise. And I don't even know if it was that much. So the apathy part, I mean, yeah, and I read every comment that was on there, and I mean, a lot of them, it just showed you people don't care. Well, this is stupid. That's the only comment you can make. This is stupid. So I don't have a whole lot of faith in what came about through the survey, especially from parents or guardians or whoever might be out there. But I don't think it's something we should be overly concerned about. What we need to be concerned about is getting our kids back on track like the rest of the nation. It's not just Leavenworth, Kansas school district. It's so bad that we can't read in 2nd grade because they didn't get to read for 2 years. But the thing that really amazes me that, okay, we're saying our kids aren't up to standards, but we get 600 kids that make the honor roll in high school. So where'd the transition come? Did they finally learn to read when they got to high school? I don't think so. Some of those numbers are kind of skewed anyway most of the time. But anyway, I agree and with Ms. Price and others. I think we ought to take this information we got tonight. Some of it's good, some of it probably wasn't so good. But that's how you meld things out. But and look at down the road and maybe look at whether schools might be doing. I looked online. I don't know how accurate it was, but there's only 25 school districts that's doing 4 days school week. 100, I think it said 100 and some schools, but 25 districts. Most of them are
In Kansas.
rural.
Right.
They probably like it because their kids can go out and throw hay instead of talking on cell phones all day. So anyway, I just think we ought to table it for making a vote for anything. And I would want to look to 25, 26 for implementing this based on the new input. If we got a lot of great input in, maybe we could adjust that. But I think we need to get a little more information that's settling the populace.
So I'd like to make a motion that the board does not wish to pursue the 4-day school week at this time, that through further research, data analysis, and input through all our stakeholders within the district, that we can look at this again for the 25-26 year. That gives us a whole year from right now to be able to do it.
It does say.
You don't have to make a motion for that.
Thank you,
Okay.
Rob. That's what I was going to say.
Well, it said board action option, so I'm just reading it
says-
off the wall.
it
with
just
the
says-
Yeah, no action needed on
Yeah,
the
at
last
the
one.
very end. It's tagged.
Okay.
Just trying to watch out for you.
I think we should still, as a board, give direction that we would like this pursued, but not approving it to be done, just getting more information
More data.
Yeah, mature the
for
process.
potentially to move forward with 25. And I personally, as a parent, would like, if we're going to approve it for the 25-26 school year, that we as a board don't approve the 25-26 calendar until this is an option in that. So I don't want to, because I already put in the dates whenever we approve the calendar already, that I'm a planner. So I would like, when we see the 25-26 school year, I would like to have a plan from the district as to what that would look like as a 4-day. Not that it is happening, but that we have a solid plan in place for that. And then we approve based on that.
I think that's a general consensus with everyone spoken. We are not
Okay.
comfortable with this at this time.
But still gives the district
Time
direction.
to
Keep maturing.
Okay.
to figure it out, or maybe come up with something else. And of course, I think we all have the right, Amy, do we not? And Robert, if we have a plan that we could also email to you all to propose, that could be taken into consideration.
For what?
Figuring out your all's day to get you some more planning time and things in there that might be more applicable without it going to a 4-day weekend.
We got to remember
we
that.
sent a suggestion.
Well, but I'm saying, yeah, I mean, the board members can always send a suggestion to the administration. Just remember
Right.
too, that we have a negotiated agreement with our teachers. So we also have to bound by the 4 corners of that document as well.
Right, right. And this wouldn't be changing anything till the next year anyway.
Yeah, but our negotiations right now are potentially for a 2-year agreement with the teachers.
Okay.
Quite ready for prime time.
Moving on.
Moving on. Consideration of a 3-day, oh no, it's not.
No,
All right, good evening. As is my annual tradition, up here for our annual textbook adoption, which I always like to say is that culmination of a 10, 11-month process going through it. This year, we're talking secondary social studies. So I know this group has heard some of this before, but I wanted to just reiterate kind of our overall process when we go through any core resource adoption. So really it starts truly in April of each year for the following year. So this time last year, Ms. Batson met with the social studies team and kind of saw what their needs were, what's out there in the marketplace. From there, we do that shopping, so to speak. Go out there, see what other districts are using, if there are any third-party reviews or vetting, and then kind of see what potential options could fit the needs that the teachers have set as far as their wants. That's kind of the summer project for our team. And then coming back, we then narrow that to a manageable focus, usually about 4 to 6 products per prep for those teachers to then take a dive into, rank, and then we come up with those top 2 being the ones we actually pilot and review in depth. This year, same process, no different. We did a back-to-back pilot, one in the fall, one in the winter. All teachers try all the products. That way we hopefully get some good data comparing the 2 because it's the same people piloting both things. They then complete a rubric process that we have created over the last few years, and we just adapt based on the content area. And then based on those results, we then move forward with negotiations, recommendations, and all the fun stuff that we're presenting today. This is a nice visual that I think hopefully helps kind of condense that into an easier way to see it. Really, and I use this analogy a lot when talking on our team, is we think about it like a funnel. We start broad of what's out there in the marketplace or what's being used. What can we then narrow it to something more manageable that our staff can then dive into? And then at that more granular level, eventually leading to the board approval, hopefully each spring, with implementation for the following year. So within that process that we always go through is kind of our standard operating procedure. We try to think about it within feedback loops. So we have the out of district feedback loops, which are, if there are third party reviews out there, statewide adoptions, which is a little bit difficult in social studies because Kansas has more state specific standards, and then references, if applicable, to any of the vendors that we're working with, as well as in district. As you know, we put together a teaching and learning instructional resources site a couple of years ago that has had information about the pilot materials since September. And we've had a public comment forum, and we'll talk about some of the data we got back from that as we go through. And that ties into that public and community information gathering loops. Jake and his team do a great job of pushing out information when those things go live to keep people involved and informed on what's going on in the process. So this is a kind of 3-layered effort that I feel like we've really beefed up in the last 4 or 5 years based on feedback and our experience working with you and the teachers through the process. You might have seen this flyer if you looked at the display table or on the website. All credit again to Michaela, who you spoke with a little bit earlier. She created this for us. Takes you directly to that link for the feedback form and then the website that has the vendor information. So we try to make it as easy as possible for everybody to dive into that. Those products that are on the table. So for this specific year, we've had materials available at the board office since fall of 23, I believe kind of mid to late September, in that range. On the public feedback form that I mentioned, we had 336 responses this year, and 97.3% of those were from students. And we offer that to teachers to provide to students anonymously. We have no idea who's filling it out other than whether they're middle or high school. And that's to follow all survey protocols and procedures and all those things. But that's kind of our response rate that we've had posted on the website. And then, as I said, the ultimate recommendation is always based on the data from the teachers. Whatever's ranked the highest, once we get to that tip of that funnel, that's what we're moving forward with, and then working on negotiations for a proposal to bring to you. With social studies, you might have seen this flyer if you took a look at the website or on the display table we had up the last few months. It's important to know that there's some courses where there's some selections. So for example, AP US History or US History, they're going to take one of those two to get that credit required. Same thing for either AP Euro World History or AP World History. But then it gets into some selections. So whether it's sociology, psychology, US law, they just have to get to that total of 3 credits. So as we talk about some of these courses, keep in mind first that they're usually older students, 11th or 12th graders, once they've met those prereqs. And secondarily, that the parent and the child have that choice in what they enroll in to get ready for their post-secondary career plans. And this is just a reiteration of what we've talked about that's on the site. Hopefully everyone's seen that at this point. And we try to keep that updated, and we close that public feedback form once we have collected the feedback from the teachers, because we provide that to them to help inform their rating process. So the courses that we reviewed in this cycle, you can see those listed for Leavenworth High: World History, U.S. History, U.S. Government, U.S. Law, Sociology, Psychology, and then our AP courses: AP World History, AP U.S. History, AP U.S. Government and Politics, AP Psychology, and AP European History. And then at Richard Warren, we have 7th grade Social Studies, and they do a combination of geography and Kansas history based on the standards. So we're looking at kind of 2 things. They do 1 semester of geography, 1 semester of Kansas history. And then 8th grade, it's a focus on early U.S. history primarily within those standards. And this is taken screenshots straight from the website. These were the pilot products that were reviewed. And if you had a chance to look on the website, those were all hyperlinks. So that would take you then to the website for that particular vendor or product to be able to gather a little bit more information without even needing to come down here and look at the books in person. So from all that whole process that we went through, we had the following recommendations purely based on the data from the staff. These were the highest rated responses of what we piloted. For 7th grade, we had TCI, Geography Alive, and then Kansas History, Gibbs Smith, The Kansas Journey, which is an updated version of what they have currently. And then 8th grade is TCI History Alive. As we've talked in the past, if possible, we try to keep those vendors together in a building because it makes it simpler for training, knowing the platforms, all those kind of things when we get to implementation. At high school, that always gets a little trickier when you're talking AP courses in bigger departments, but we try to align things based on those preps as best we can. And ultimately, this is what the team recommended. We provide the data and said, where do you want to go based on that? So you can see they recommended for the AP courses, BFW titles, then McGraw-Hill for psychology, sociology, and U.S. law, and then Savas, you might have heard of them as Pearson, U.S. government, U.S. history, and world history. So all companies that we've worked with in the past or are well known in the textbook space. So the recommended package I tried to give you just as a nutshell, and I know you have all the individual quotes in your board packet. Each one includes physical student books. We always at secondary do that class set plus a buffer that allows for that individual checkout or wear and tear over the course of time. So if a student needs to take it home, they can certainly do that. We budget about 35 books per teacher for each of those courses. So more than enough based on what's in the classes. Teacher physical materials, of course, if there's a teacher's guide or teacher digital access, that is always included. And then in this case, we went with a 6-year digital license. So in essence, we have guaranteed access for 6 years, which is pretty standard of either 6 or 7 years based on previous adoptions. Then implementation, professional development. Always want to give them training when we give them the books. And that'll be scheduled in collaboration with Mr. Kessler and Mr. Vanek based on that calendar. And then, of course, we always provide that opportunity if they need individualized professional development. We'll work with either our team to provide that or add-on sessions as needed. So that total package, if you look at all those things together, is $254,769.54. And again, for folks that are newer to this, we try to pay for everything now, so then we don't have ongoing costs that are unknown throughout. So this is, with the exception of if we get a higher number of enrollments in a course, so we have to add a couple books, we try to have everything upfront cost for the full course of the implementation. So with that, I'm open to any questions you may have.
I have a question.
Yes.
So we just did this about 6 years ago.
So the copyrights for most of the books were about 2015, 2016. So a little bit older, about nine-ish years, 8, 9 years.
Okay, I just remember voting on books about 6 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
The current books that we have in these classes, in these topics, when is their digital license expiring?
It expired 2 years ago, I believe.
It expired in 2 more years?
No,
or
already.
It
It's been
expired already.
Yep. And that's a challenge. We've talked about that, I know, before in previous years, is that with the move to having a combination of physical and digital, which I think is important, once those digital licenses run out, that can be extremely expensive to extend.
Right.
And also companies, because they get new products, they eventually sunset those. So some, even if we wanted to, we couldn't have extended the license on.
How important is the digital portion of the curriculum in these classes?
I think it's a combination. I mean, I'd hate to give you a one size fits all. I think a big advantage nowadays is those embedded tools that you're going to have in a lot of the books, whether that's a read aloud if you have a student who's reading below grade level but can understand the content.
The read out loud program.
The ability to highlight, annotate those digital tools. Some even have auto grading features on some of the assignments and assessments. But I think it's a balance, right, of having a physical book in your hand as well, because we all have different modalities of learning.
So that's interesting that you say that. You say they have auto grading programs built into them, basically an app, a grading app for some of the.
Some, I won't say, it's not every title, hear me say
Right,
that.
but there is a good potential that some of them now, especially with further advancement and AI and everything, there are grading tools in there. Are there curriculum or lesson plan writers in there where it assists with their lesson plans?
They have lesson plan templates, like what they would cover for it. Now, that's what the art and science of teaching. I would never expect teacher to read the book cover to cover.
Right.
You're going to pull things out and make it applicable for your class and for your kids.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? I think you should negotiate for that 54 cents on the end of that amount.
Hey, I was just happy it came out lower than science last year.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the adoption of the texts that are being recommended for the total cost of $254,769.54.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Wells, second by Mrs. Price to approve the purchase of these wonderful books. All in favor? Where are we? 4-3? Is there any reason why you're not voting to get these books? Anybody that's voting no? Just curious.
Bodensteiner, I apologize, was very helpful in all of our discussions with the meeting being late. I didn't want to rehash it again. I made my platform pretty clear in roughly March of 2020 as to what I think the district needs to focus on academically. And so also, if you take a look at the companies that I've talked about this before, so stop me when you've had enough, but if you take a look at the companies that publish these books, often the things that they're involved in, I don't feel comfortable sending tax dollars to without going into in depth on things I've already discussed previously.
Okay. Is that a good reason? Anybody else?
Yeah, I realized the digital license already been expired for 2 years, so necessarily it's not a rush that we have to buy them right now. We just talked about how we're getting ready for a $700,000 deficit. We could sit here and push this down another year or so and see what happens.
Yeah.
So if we're going to be financially and physically responsible, sometimes it's best to wait if it's still working for now. Outside of the
Was it
digital
outdated?
license,
Was
it's
the
not.
information outdated?
Well, I mean, I would think about the world has changed from 2015, 2016 to
Yeah.
2024. I think the other piece to keep in mind is you can always, and that's a budgetary discussion we have each year of what the priorities are. But we just have to be mindful of, it's kind of like the train and it keeps going down the track and eventually you have a pile up of a lot of older titles that you would want to replace at one time,
Right.
which becomes
So
fiscally
along
difficult.
that standpoint, we've had this discussion before when we voted on science books and the other books 6-7 years ago. It's always this same one. There were some books in here, I didn't necessarily agree with some of the lessons and the verbiage in them. If we separated them, did them down individually, there would have been some I would have approved of, and others I would not have approved of. But it's a package deal, so since I can't separate it out, thereby I vote no.
I would echo that too. That's why I didn't vote for it. There's one book that I came back to look at 3 different times and I'm just not comfortable with it.
So do you have any other companies that might have books that you want the kids to read?
I've expressed before my hope. There's a lot of curriculum to choose from if you go shopping for curriculum. And so I've expressed, just like I stated before, I think it's important what we do with taxpayer dollars, especially when we come to the social issues. And I think that the school needs to press the brakes on that and focus on what we've talked about before, reading, math, writing. Like, we're getting ready to graduate a class of seniors that were never taught cursive. So when they go down to get their driver's license, they don't have a signature. They can't sign for credit cards that they're old enough to use. These things are extremely troubling. So
Ms. Batson, is that true that our high school seniors were not taught cursive?
I'd have to go back and look and count it back. Cursive is introduced in 2nd grade and then used in 3rd grade. It is not our main emphasis in literacy by any means, but as you remember a few years ago, it absolutely became an emphasis, I believe, with Ms. Klemp, who was a former board member. And so cursive was reintroduced back into our elementary schools.
And I'm not just for transparency's sake dropping anything. Ms. Batson and I had a conversation specifically about the cursive that wasn't taught.
All of my children have learned cursive and they all went here, so.
Well, I will take my statement back and correct it. It might be specifically David Brewer.
Okay.
my understanding was it was had a larger effect, but it might have been David Brewer.
Yeah, it was at Lawson. It was taught. My son's a senior and he does no cursive.
That would be, that's sad, I guess, in that case, that one particular building, you know, I'm actually happy that it wasn't more buildings.
No,
That would
it
be
was
worse.
Henry Leavenworth also.
I would just be
My
hesitant
son
in
was at
making
Henry
a blanket
Leavenworth.
statement that
Yeah.
no one taught cursive during those years
Yeah.
in there. So I will say, even
Probably
to
most
the
of the
all
parents I know
children
are
did
from
not
David
have the
Brewer,
exact
so.
same opportunity in every building within our district.
That's one of the things we work hard at, is reducing that variability based on which classroom or which school
Thank
you
you.
attend.
And there's probably not a doctor in this country that knows cursive.
No, but their assistants know how to read his handwriting.
Yeah, but it seems to me like
They
everything
don't write him anymore.
right on these phones and computers. I mean, cursive to me is, I guess it's kind of an art form to maybe try with your kids when they're little, but
There's pretty important documents that are written in cursive, Mr. Green.
what's that?
So tonight,
Constitution.
one of the things I'm excited to bring to you is part of our ESSER plan, as you know, was to increase the opportunities we have for our students. And one of the programs that we have invested quite a bit of time, energy, and seen success from is our AVID program. So currently our AVID program is at the high school and as well as Warren Middle School. And we are looking to continue that membership and that partnership with AVID, as well as expand to our 5-6. Now, AVID at 5-6 looks different than it does 7-12. So I want to say that up front. And in that, students are still exposed to that Wicker strategies of writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. So it builds a framework for our AVID electives, which start in 7th grade and go through our senior years. So there was a presentation shared with you earlier. I've given you the narrative and the quote, and I'm open for any questions on considering this is paid for 100% through our ESSER funds. It was part of our ESSER plan originally when it was approved by the board.
Question for you, Ms. Batson. So prior to ESSER funds, how did we pay AVID?
Was
Because we've been
that-
doing it for several years.
Right. This is, we've had it for 8 years. It was paid for by a DODEA grant that was done.
And after ESSER dollars, would we be eligible for another DODEA grant, or would we look
So
at?
as some buildings would be eligible for DODEA grants based on military representation inside their buildings, but we have an agreement with our foundation who is absolutely said they would help pay for this along with teaching and learning.
Thank you.
One of the things I had found when just researching AVID as a whole were SEL being a part of that. And then another thing was CRT lessons. So are you aware of any CRT lessons being active in the AVID program that we have at Leavenworth? I saw some in other districts, and I was just curious about our own district. Do we have that tie as well?
So I'm not trying to avoid the question, but that has such a different meaning based on, you know, what each person says. I will say that one of the things that we are very dedicated to at Leavenworth is closing that opportunity gap. So in that, providing tools, scaffolding, the tutorials, for example, that go into minimizing that opportunity gap, which then in turn minimizes that achievement gap. So am I aware of any specifically slanted or you know, CRT driven? No. But based on someone's definition, you know, I don't know how to answer that question in there. But what I will say is we are committed to closing that opportunity gap for students.
Thank you.
So are we tracking the student success of the ones that enter the AVID program? Because I'm assuming when they enter it, they stay in it the entire time.
Not necessarily as far as staying in there. Do we track? Yes. That's one of the requirements for AVID. Each grade level, each AVID elective versus AVID school-wide have data that's inputted in based on, for example, especially our senior exit data, where they've committed to, what colleges have accepted them, how much money they've earned in scholarships, if they have completed FAFSA, if they are planning on armed services, all of that gets entered into the senior exit data spreadsheet for Avid. Secondly, each grade level, as you go up, there are several forms that enter in there on how are Avid elective students performing as compared to non-Avid students. And from there, we as a district use that data to see, are we meeting the needs of these students? And so far, our district's data is showing that absolutely, that achievement gap is closing between Avid students and our non-Avid and their non-Avid peers.
Okay. And is there an application process for the students to enter the AVID program?
At the high school, there has been for several years now. We have one that's starting in 7-8. That will be an application process. It's one of the benefits if we choose to expand down to 5-6. So then they will know, okay, yeah, I really think I need the support system. I need the scaffolding that comes into AVID. I need the teachers helping me set goals and keep organized and those things. So then they'll make a better informed decision when choosing electives.
And then have we looked at the students' gradual, assuming that we've had the students since kindergarten and seen that, they've grown 2 data points every assessment time, or they've lost growth. Have we looked at the AVID student, like the individual students themselves that have entered the program to see where they were before and see if they've gained?
So
specifically,
yes and no. Have we done that for every AVID student? No.
Okay.
Have we done it for some AVID students? Absolutely, because we're looking to see if that intervention, that student support is helping them through our process, our intervention or SIT process.
Okay.
In that, but have we done it for every student? No.
So how do we know that the AVID program that we're providing to our students is successful?
Well, 19 seniors last year, $670,000 worth of scholarship. And one of the things that, literally gives me chill bumps every year is they have started doing an end of year video. And to see kids say, I entered high school with no future. Now I just signed on at Emporia. I did not know what I was going to be doing. And now I got this on my ACT. That's data that says that kid used the tools that we as a community, as a school community, were able to provide them to become success. And literally talking about it gives me chill bumps.
Yeah.
And I wish we could do that for every kid, but I'm so thankful we can do it for every AVID kid that participates in our program.
I would hope that we as a board are continued to be invited to their end of the year celebrations. I very much love watching those videos and meeting those students and hearing their stories.
Absolutely.
If I may, if memory serves me correct, Mary Schwartz was the AVID teacher last year.
Yes.
Who is the AVID teacher this year?
Her name is Debbie Montgomery at the high school and Amber Viewig at middle school.
Repeat the second one.
Amber Viewig.
Amber.
And how many kids participate in that in the high school?
In the high school, you have some classes as small, on as 10, you have some as big as 20, each of the elective. It is meant to be a smaller class because it is very personalized. At the middle school, it's a little bigger. You have about 22 in each AVID elective class, and they are experiencing getting ready to see, okay, I'm ready for high school now. In middle school, our whole goal is to get them ready for high school. At high school, their whole goal is post-secondary when they graduate. One of the big successes we've had in our middle school AVID program this semester is we have AVID leaders who have been with the AVID program now since 7th grade, going and working and doing small groups with the 5th and 6th graders. So while teachers are doing small group instruction in literacy, you've got 8th grade students and some 7th grade students going to the 5th and 6th grade and doing games, literacy-based games with small groups of students. And so far, knock on wood, it's gone really well.
So what are some of the markers that enables a child to be accepted into this program?
So willing to be in the program.
So no, okay. Just do it like Nike.
That's right.
Any more Avid questions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the 24 through 29 contract with Avid for an amount not to exceed 85,000.
Second.
Got a motion by Mrs. Wells, second by Mrs. Price to accept this, to approve the Avid contract, not to exceed, what was it, 84,000,
85,000.
85,000? All in favor? Yeah, we got 6-1.
Thank you.
Thanks, Miss Laura.
All right. Good evening again. So we're going to do our strategic plan highlight tonight. So yeah, it's a little tongue twister there. So as you've seen from Jake the last few months, this is our strategic plan dashboard that we're doing a month-by-month rollout of different data points. Tonight's focus is academic. So we're going to look a little bit at our FastBridge data. So I'll show you how to navigate there, and then I'll explain kind of what we're looking at. So it'll be under the teaching and learning section. If you go to FastBridge, just click right there. And what FastBridge is our academic screener. So the state of Kansas has different criteria around academic screeners that we are to do in fall, winter, and spring. And those are done K through 12. We do them for reading and math for every student with very few exceptions. One of the exceptions I always like to note is seniors who don't have a math class. We don't test them because they're not getting instruction in that subject area because they've already satisfied their math credits. But generally speaking, every K through 12 student takes this. If you'd like to dig into kind of the intricacies of FastBridge, on this page, there's a link to our instructional materials website, and there's an assessment page within that has links to the FastBridge website, what's on FastBridge. We have a parent guide, we call it, that's a 2-pager about what's assessed, so you can get a little more into the details of the assessment and what's entailed. But what we've posted for you, just like when Jake went over social media last month, is kind of that overall snapshot. So not every piece of data we've pulled from it, just kind of that high level view. So the first thing to help you orient to this is on the left-hand side, obviously you have graphs. So what we looked for you first is for reading. So where it says early reading here, early reading is anything that's K1. And the reason why it's called early reading is that it's made up of 4 subtests that are given one-on-one with the teacher and student, and each one only lasts about a minute. So let's say we're doing letter sound fluency, and I'm working with Miss Price and assessing her, and she's giving her letter sounds back to me in a minute long that I'm scoring her on the computer. So they're very short assessments that can be broken up over a number of days within the testing window. So that represents K and 1 right here. We have fall on the left. Green is anything that's above benchmark. Yellow is 1 level below benchmark. So just some students you might want to monitor would be one way to phrase that. And then red would be students who are 2 or more levels below benchmark. Now, one other important piece to know in all these graphs is as the year goes on, the goalpost moves, right? So where I expect Miss Price to be as a fall first grader is I expect her to be farther as a winter first grader. So FastBridge adjusts for that, so it's not a standing goalpost throughout. I think that's an important piece to keep in mind. So a positive that we wanted to note is if you look K through 12, so the K data to the 12th data, we have an 18% increase from K to 12 in that above benchmark category. So the longer they stay in school, the better they end up performing on average. In your bottom left, what the graph shows is the same, but it's called A reading is this assessment. So A reading is about 30-minute adaptive assessment. So every student gets their own test and it's taken individually on the Chromebook. What it basically does is Ms. Price is taking it. If she's getting questions correct, it's getting more difficult. If she's getting questions wrong, it's getting easier. So it's getting to that just right level or a scale score that then represents where they would fall on that benchmark. So that's taken every student 2nd through 12th. So part of what FastBridge tries to do is be correct with developmental levels in terms of one-on-one assessments in K1, but then more individual assessments in 2nd through 12, and kind of combining that computer-generated assessments with those that might be administered by a teacher. So in A reading, we had 44% of students make typical or aggressive growth from fall to winter, and that's categorized by FastBridge. So they have metrics within the system that say this percent of students made aggressive growth or typical growth or modest growth. So we had 44% that were in that typical to aggressive category in grades 2 through 12. If you click this little arrow down here, that'll go to slide 2, and that is our math data. So on the top left again is early math. It's the same idea as early reading. It's one-on-one assessments. There's about 3 or 4 that make up the composite score, and that gives us their benchmark level. Those might be number sequence, place value, number identification, those kind of base math skills. And we had 51% of students in K1 making typical or aggressive growth from that fall to winter when we looked at that data. And then on the bottom left is what is called AMath. A stands for adaptive, just like in reading. So same idea that student gets about a 30-question, 30-minute individual test that adjusts to how they're performing. And on that assessment, grades 2 through 12, we had 48% of students making typical or aggressive growth from fall to winter. So roughly half in a lot of those categories. So with this data, we use it at a number of levels. At the building level, they're using it for those student intervention teams to help determine who's getting pull-out interventions or push-in interventions, progress monitoring. I meet individually with each of our building administrators to go over their building data and look at what trends they're seeing, positive, negative, things like that, and have individual data talks. And then after each benchmarking period, we as a cabinet with Dr. Adams meet to go over the data down to the subgroup level. So we break this out into many different categories that we look at. But tonight, we just wanted to give you that overall snapshot as a screener. And then again, this is taken fall, winter, spring. So our next window will be after state assessments. So in that late April to May type time period, I believe Lawson's window ends right before Memorial Day with their alternate calendar for this year. So with that, any questions I can answer at this point?
How frequently will this be updated?
So the Fast Bridge will be updated on the website after each benchmarking period. As we've had with previous months, there'll be one that'll be the focus area. So we put winter for Fast Bridge. So in spring, it'll be another piece, but it will be updated on the site after each benchmarking period.
And then I would just ask, like I asked last time, that anytime we have data that we're putting up there, if there can just be a blip of this data was captured on this date or published on this date so that we can physically see when that newest one was.
Would you like that in cursive?
Sure.
My cursive is not very good. Thank you so much.
So that one would have been the end of the winter testing benchmark window.
Yeah, so we have winter 24 here, and then the frequency update is November, February, and May, roughly.
Would that be like end of January?
End
So
of
the
February.
testing window was roughly second week back from winter break through beginning of February, and then
Yeah, the ending, like the date that the information was captured to be able to put here. What date was that information gathered?
sure.
As of X
Yes.
February.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along. Item 13, superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. I have 4 items tonight. I'll attempt to be expeditious for everybody's sake. First of which is Coffee with Kellen. We did host our first one last week, February the 21st, and we had about 15 individuals. And I want to say thank you to Mrs. Price for making a trip out here. Based upon that initial feedback, we'll be adjusting the start times. So our next one will be Wednesday, March the 27th. We'll go a little bit later, as the feedback we heard was people needed to have the opportunity to drop students off at school. So we will go 7:15 to 8:45 on the second one to see if that is able to increase participation. Second topic for tonight is parent-teacher conferences. Just a reminder that there's no school for students Wednesday through Friday this week. So 3 o'clock tomorrow, spring break begins. I'm looking at 2 of our students that are already celebrating. And those parent-teacher conferences will be held between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. and then 2 to 6 p.m. on Thursday, March the 7th. This obviously then rolls into our spring break with classes resuming on Monday, March the 18th. Third topic for tonight, hopefully in front of all of your desks, was that little bag of treats. So I just want to say a special thank you to our students from the Quest 1821 program for providing those, as well as to our instructors that oversee that important work every day. And the final topic is state recognition. We did have a number of individuals that participated recently with the conclusion of the winter sports season. And just due to scheduling and some other issues, we're going to recognize them at the April 15th board meeting. So just a reminder, which we'll go over later when we conclude the meeting, the April 15th board meeting would be when we recognize all of our winter sports state qualifiers. Mr. Carney, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Okay, item 14, executive session for negotiations.
Amy, how much time do we need? Okay.
10.
Mr. President, I move we go into executive session. Do we need another potty break? Are we okay? I'm good.
I'm good.
I think we're good.
I'm good. All right. I move we go into executive session to discuss negotiations pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and that we return to open session in this room in 10 minutes at 9:26. The board would like to invite Dr. Adams, Amy Sloan, Beth Maddox, and Robert Hingula into the meeting.
Second. Sorry. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, either.
Got a motion by Mrs. Wells, second by Mrs. Murphy
Okay.
to go into executive session. All in favor? 7-0. All right. Let's go negotiate.
All right.
Okay.
Mr. President, I move we go into executive session to discuss non-elected personnel pursuant to the exception under the Kansas Open Meetings Act in order to protect the privacy interests of the individuals to be discussed, and that we return to open session in this room in 10 minutes. The board would like to invite Dr. Adams, Amy Sloan, and Robert Hingula.
Second.
Got a motion by Mrs. Wells, second. Who got the second? Mrs. Murphy to go into executive session. All in favor? 7-0. Let's roll.
37 minutes.
Is there
Yeah,
somebody?
there's one right here.
This is not in cursive.
It's not time.
Not time. Oh, wait a minute. Let me go. Is that your signature? Where we at?
15 seconds.
15 seconds.
And then
Okay.
we've got meeting dates first and approving them. Yeah, that's it.
Got it.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to accept the staffing report as presented.
Second.
We got a motion to approve the staffing report. Ms. Wells, who seconded it?
I did.
Price seconded. All in favor? 7-0 on the staffing report. And now we have
All the upcoming meeting dates,
the what?
upcoming meeting dates. Ooh. A lot of good things happening. Are we as a board invited to all of these dates? Okay,
All these?
yes.
Can everybody read these? Or do I need to read these?
Nope.
No, it's posted in public.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. then.
Thankfully, it's not in cursive.
Pardon me?
So just the one I'll draw your attention to
Yeah.
for everybody's sake, listening online and otherwise, the April board meeting will not be on April 8th. It would usually have been on April 8th.
Right.
It is now on April 15th. Still in this room, still at the same time, but it will be the third Monday in April.
What if we're still filing our taxes?
You're too
It's still
late.
here.
You're too late.
Sitting there with your accountant.
Okay, so we're all happy with the dates and got the meeting date. Unscheduled patron input and Mrs. Mueller. Miss Mueller? Are you Mrs. Miller or Ms.?
Miller.
Well, first of all, regarding cursive, I took a survey of Avid students about 3 years ago, and I asked the ones, who did and who did not know cursive. The ones who did not know cursive were not our students in second and third, fourth grade. They were generally military students, so they missed it in other schools and then came to us. So just
That's
keep,
interesting.
yeah, I don't believe it's a nationwide standard. Second, I just wanted to say that I spent my whole career here, 23 years. And so I take great issue when I hear things like we're not producing or our schools are failing. And I know for a fact at the high school, reading and math is just a few points below the state average. Reading and science have exceeded the state standard and the state average for the last 2 years. Math is very, very close, and that's in light of having long-term subs and alternative route teachers teaching those classes. We produce excellence every day, every day. Do we have room to grow? Absolutely. And we want to grow, and we will keep growing. But to say that excellence isn't the expectation or the output, I think is not fair. And lastly, yeah, we are aware of our staffing issues. Nobody is more aware than those of us that are in the classroom. My time right now is split between being a librarian and an English teacher, because that's what we need. I think that we can come up with some solutions to address the staffing issue. They might include the 4-day week. And there are many other things I think if we work collectively together, we can do to address staffing issues immediately and in the future. I hope everybody has a good spring break. I know we're ready. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Oh,
And we appreciate the day off for the national championship game. The board meeting moving will allow us time to watch the national basketball championship. So thank you for that.
so where are we?
Board member comments.
Oh, yeah. I would just ask that the board comments don't be repetitive of what we've already talked about, if that's fair. I mean, if you feel like it's really necessary to already talk about something we've discussed, I guess that's fine, but I don't think we need to do that. Okay, Ms. Reed?
I'm going to break your request and
Okay.
just once again thank everybody that reached out and provided feedback. That's all.
Oh,
I'd like to thank everybody that reached out as well. And hopefully, I know regardless of the situation, we have those that'll be upset and those that are happy with the decision made. But we really all came together and worked good tonight. So I appreciate all of you and thank you guys for coming out.
Okay, I'm going to repeat. Thank you for reaching out. I got some very interesting emails and very thoughtful. I feel like we made the right decision for right now. And I would echo what Ms. Mueller said, that I think that there are probably a lot of things that we can do to address our staff shortages and the climate in our schools. And enjoy your spring break.
Ms. Murphy?
I want to say thank you for the yummies from Quest 18 to 21. I have a granddaughter that's going to love them more than I'll get to, but that's okay. Drill team finished up again this weekend, doing amazing things. So I'm pretty sure we're going to see even more amazing things coming here in the future. I want to thank our superintendent for the Chiefs Day, the free red day for the parade. I want to express my sorrow and sadness for any of the victims that attended that event, and that our heart goes out to the families that were directly impacted within our community because of that hostility. Know that we're thinking about you. I'm looking forward to seeing any of our students that are still here for spring break that may be attending our St. Patrick's Day parade on Sunday the 17th. And I would like you all to, I want to thank everybody that helped work on the presentation. I know that took a very, very, very long time to try and work on that. There were just some gaps and it left a lot of questions, but I know that we'll all come up with something at some point together. And I do appreciate the time that you did work on it. And Beth, great job on that accounting report. And thank you very much. Have a good spring break.
Spice?
Alrighty, I have lots of things. So thanks to Quest folks for the snacks. You guys, always doing awesome stuff and always coming out with new, really cute things. So these are really nice. I want to thank all the history and social studies teachers for doing the 2 pilots to get through those books. I know it's not easy to teach from something you're not used to using as a resource. So thank you for going through all of that and coming up with what the best options are for your classes. This week's the parent-teacher conferences. Please, please go. If you're a parent, you may not have met all of your kids' teachers. This is a great opportunity to go build relationships. And then we have an extended spring break, so please come back safe. And then for those kids who are involved in spring sports, if you don't have a sport to go support, go get a schedule and go pick games that fit your schedules, because we really need to support all of our kids. And with that in mind, I want to remind everyone that it's 75 days to graduation, and go Pioneers.
Mrs. Wells?
All right. Ultimately, I think we as a board have a responsibility to make our district as attractive and welcoming to our current staff, as well as recruiting new staff. I think this lack of success ultimately falls on us as a board for not working well together as a team. We don't have to agree on our morals, but we do need to agree that we are sitting here to serve our students' best needs. We need to be here to help prepare them for success in every classroom every day. That's it.
I want to thank whoever gave me this nice dinner. You know, I thought it was very, very, very kind of them. But I just have one thing to say, and unfortunately, it's about another school. And I just thought it was kind of funny to end the meeting this way. I have a grandson. He didn't know he was getting an award out of Lansing Elementary. And so I went out to check it out, and he got a standing ovation for being diligent. So after I went up and said, "What is diligent? What does that mean?" He said, "I worked real hard at something, Grandpa, and I stayed with it." I said, "Sounds diligent." I thought that was pretty cool. And I went out to watch our baseball team scrimmage the other day, and they look pretty solid. Hopefully they'll have a successful season. But I don't know. When do we play soccer in spring or fall?
Now. Girls are now.
Girls now. So we went to see those girls play. I have a granddaughter be moving up to be a freshman next year. She's all about soccer. I'm not, but anyway, let's just get out of here. I'm done.